Chapter 606. Before Lone Moon could answer, Li Zi, who was supporting the man beside him, her eyes lit up. Shuning. With that said, she let go and ran over, grabbing Shuning. You're finally back. I've been here a few times already, but didn't see you. How have you been recently? Are you hungry? Do you want a pear? With that said, she directly took out a familiar-looking pear and stuffed it over. Shuning, fortunately, Chef at the side directly reached out to stop it. Thank you for your kindness, but Master only likes pears that can be eaten. He doesn't like the kind that can only lock people up. Besides, isn't your plane already damaged? Where did you get so much power of the original source to make pears and give to people? Who said that this can't be eaten? Li Zi frowned. I modified it. Shuning, do you want to try? Does the people of your position as a manager know that? I Ching frowned, then reminded her. Instead of giving pears, you'd better care about your friend. He's already fallen to the ground. He turned and pointed behind her. Li Zi was stunned for a moment. Only then did she realize. She let go just now too suddenly. The injured person who was originally supporting was already lying on the ground, and had even fainted, but his expression was painful. His breathing was even weaker than before. Aya. She was instantly shocked. After a while she sighed and said, It's okay. I picked him up anyway. I Ching, Lone Moon, picked up. You're not the one who fell, of course you're okay. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Then he squatted down and picked up the person again, casually throwing him on the sofa in front of him, casting a few spells consecutively. The person's expression finally looked better. His breathing also slowed down. Oomph. Evil brainless fan. Who exactly is this person? I Ching turned to look at Father Nyo. Don't ask me. Father Nyo turned to look at Li Zi. Ask her. The three of them immediately fixed their eyes on Li Zi. I don't know either. I found him at the edge of the void when I was repairing the plane. Li Zi shook her head. After a while, thought of something. Her eyes darkened. But I sensed the aura of those fellows from the Big Tao organization on him, so I brought him over. Do you think this is a shelter? Shuning. She took another step closer and asked with a serious expression. Help me take a look. Is he one of those Big Tao organization that slipped through the net? Is there any energy from other planes on him? If there was, then he must be someone like those people who had attacked other planes. No. Shuning took a bite of her fruit and shook her head. Oh. She sighed in disappointment. She had thought that she could take revenge on the way, but it turned out that it wasn't the case. If she had known earlier, she wouldn't have brought it along. It was quite heavy. Let's wake her up first. Lone Moon interrupted. He glanced at I Ching and said, Chef, help me. I Ching nodded and walked over. This person was a manager after all. Ordinary sorcery might not be able to wake him up. They had to use their manager abilities. It would be safer with Chef around. The two of them simultaneously summoned a white array formation. For a moment, the white light shone brightly, and the dissipating energy on that person's body slowly came to a stop. His originally pale face also slowly recovered some chi and blood. The few of them didn't have to wait for long before that person slowly opened his eyes. He looked around in a daze. His gaze then landed on Shun Ying, who was nibbling on her fruit. His eyes lit up immediately. He turned sideways and rolled down from the sofa. He struggled to pounce over. My lord. He reached out and wanted to hug her. I Ching's expression darkened. Just as he was about to go forward, Pear beside him was one step faster. She directly flipped him away. What are you trying to do? She didn't even hug him. I Ching, who was one step slower. Little bitch. Chef was very unhappy. The man fell back onto the sofa after being flipped by her, but he still hurriedly climbed up and knelt down. My lord, I finally found you. I beg you, save my plane. If it's you, you can definitely do it. I beg you. With that said, he didn't care about his body that had not recovered yet. He directly kowtowed to her. Lone Moon frowned, seeing that the primordial chi that he had just recovered was going to be tossed away again. He turned to look at Shuning. You know him? Shuning tilted her head, looking confused. All right, I got it. It seemed like she didn't know him. That was strange. Lone Moon then took a step forward and pulled the man up. Stand up and talk. Why are you looking for Shuning? Why are you looking for her? What's wrong with your plane? The man looked at Lone Moon, then at Shun beside him. He hesitated for a moment before slowly standing up. He sat down on the sofa. The anxious expression on his face did not fade. Instead, it became even more intense. He then said hurriedly, I don't know if my lord still remembers me. My name is Chao Kuan. That day at the Big Tao organization, you once helped me to break free from the plane's lock? The few of them were stunned. Not to mention Xining, who never remembered her name. Even Lone Moon and I Ching didn't remember her. There were hundreds of managers present at that time. Naturally, they couldn't remember all of them. You were one of the 100 managers that day? Lone Moon asked. Yes, yes, yes. He nodded vigorously. Thanks to my lord's help, my plane could break free from the lock of that starry sky. Since you're already free, now you're here. His face turned even paler. As if recalling something, his face was full of grief and indignation. I had no choice but to forcefully cross the plane door to find my lord. Just because my plane really can't hold on any longer. He took a deep breath and raised his hand to conjure a seal. Then he remembered that this was someone else's plane. He turned to look at Lone Moon as if asking for permission. Can I? Lone Moon nodded. He agreed to conjure a spell in the divine realm. Only then did he brace his heavily injured body to summon a water mirror. The mirror shook, and immediately the image of a tree slowly appeared. It was originally a plain tree that was completely green, but now the entire tree looked like it was dying. Black spots crawled all over it, as if it had been corroded, and those black spots were getting bigger and bigger. They were slowly spreading to the entire plain tree. It seemed like it wouldn't be long before the entire tree turned black. This is your plane? Lone Moon was shocked. He had never seen such a wretched plane tree. It was even worse than the one in his house. Yes. His expression became even more indignant. Originally, after breaking free from the lock, I indeed thought that the plane would become better and better. But a while ago, a very special invader suddenly appeared in our plane. He went around destroying the balance of the plane, and his abilities are extremely terrifying. Even I am no match for him. In just a few short months, the entire plane has started to collapse. I'm afraid it won't be long before our plane completely collapses. Lone Moon and I Ching exchanged a look. There was actually such a powerful invader. The more he spoke, the more anxious he became. Even his eyes were faintly wet. He turned to look at Xining with a hopeful expression. My lord, you're the fairest person I've ever met. And he's someone who defeated the Big Tao organization. If it's you, you can definitely help me deal with him. I beg you, help me? I'm not going. For not only Xining, even Chef Lone Moon and Pear at the side spoke in unison. Instant rejection. Chao Kuan, huh? This was different from what they agreed on. Chapter 607. Why? Chao Kuan was confused. Only then did the few of them speak one after another. You can't even deal with invaders. Why are you still a manager? We still have a bunch of things to deal with in our own plane. Where do we have time to mind other people's business? Time is money. Do you understand? It's almost time. I have to cook for Master. Who's going to be responsible if she gets hungry? Sigh. Opening a new instance is so troublesome. Chao Kuan, this was different from what he imagined, of course. Was the person who saved hundreds of planes really these people in front of him? Could they have been possessed by someone? Instead of wasting time here, why don't we hurry back and think about how to deal with invaders? Pear glanced at him and hurriedly chased him away. As a manager, we shouldn't interfere with the affairs of other planes. Don't make things difficult for Xining here. Is it so easy to cling to my idol's thigh? She hasn't even fully hugged it yet. Chao Kuan panicked, still unwilling to give up. But Lord clearly helped us to deal with the Big Tao organization last time. Why now? Oh, that was purely an accident, Lone Moon replied casually. At first, he was just curious that there was an official organization among managers, but ever since they went to the administrative committee, they were already completely disappointed in the so-called managers' union. Just take it that we're just going on a tour. Tour. Going to the Big Tao organization was just for a tour. What was the act of directly demolishing it? Leaving behind some souvenirs before leaving? Chao Kuan didn't feel good. He looked anxious but didn't know what to say. He glanced at Shanning, who was already sprawled lazily on the sofa and chewing on her fruit, not even looking over, and the two people beside her who were watching him like he was a thief. In the end, he had no choice but to fix his pleading gaze on the relatively normal lone moon who was doing some calculations on an abacus. Fellow Taoist, go back if you understand. Just as he was about to speak, Lone Moon raised his head and said with a friendly smile, I've calculated it for you. The total cost of the treatment just now is 35,672 supreme grade immortal stones. Rounding it up, it'll be 36,000. You know, chef and our managers after all. Naturally, it's more expensive. He didn't react for a moment. This still had to be calculated? Why do you think it's expensive? Lone Moon narrowed his eyes and shook his head. This is already very favorable. I can ignore the fact that you entered the country illegally, and I don't need you to pay for the visa fees, plane tolls, transportation fees for the injured, and Shun Ying's consultation fees. Oh, right, we charge by the second. Are you a devil? Which manager would have something like an immortal stone on them? Chao Kuan stared at him blankly for a while. Seeing that the other party did not seem to be joking at all, he then realized that he was serious. Fellow Taoist, I really don't have any immortal stones on me right now. How about no credit? Lone Moon put away the abacus and stood up, looking like he was going to send the guest off. Fellow Taoist, it's not that I want to force you. His expression became even more anxious. But this invader is indeed very special. His power is also very strange. Even until now, I still can't see what kind of person he is. He's even scarier than Yu Hung from the Big Tao organization. Although this is only a matter of our plane, no one can guarantee that he won't attack other planes. Lone Moon frowned. The other party's expression became even more worried. As if thinking of something, he hurriedly said, If you don't believe me, follow me to the plane and you'll know. Right now, my entire plane is in chaos, and all living beings are affected. As long as you are willing to help me save the plane, I'll double, no? I can even pay 10 times the immortal stones. Immortal stones, spirit meridians, even the original source chi, as long as you're interested. All right, as long as the plane can be restored. Only then did he realize what the other party had replied. With a confused expression, he said, You agreed. Lone Moon instantly put on his professional business expression and smiled kindly. For what fellow Taoist Chao Kuan said, that person is indeed very dangerous. We should indeed go and take a look. You should have said so earlier if you had the money. Of course. Chao Kuan's eyes widened. His face was full of disbelief. He was so stubborn just now. Why did he change his mind so quickly? We're all managers. It's only right for us to help each other. Of course we can go and take a look, but we can't guarantee that we can really help. All right, I know. He nodded vigorously, his face wild with joy. Lone Moon smiled even more kindly. He even took a step forward and patted the other party's shoulder. Come. Tell us in detail about the situation of your plane. This way, it'll be easier for us to operate, especially the valuable parts. All right, fellow Taoist. Thank you, fellow Taoist. I Ching, Shan Ing, pair. A while later, the corner of I Ching's mouth twitched. Master, Father Nyo is Shining nodded. I guess he's planning to expand his business to other planes. Then we're really going over. Before he finished speaking, Lone Moon, who had almost stripped Chao Kuan clean, turned back and waved at them. Shen Ing, chef. Get ready to go. Shen Ing turned back to look at chef before answering. That's right. We're really going. The few of them were ready to set off after a meal. After asking, they found out that the plane door on Chao Kuan's side was already locked. There was no way to directly enter that plane. I left a back door at the border of the plane. Chao Kuan hurriedly explained. It connects to the land of nothingness. We can pass through there. Nothingness? Pear faltered for a moment. She turned to look at Chao Kuan. That's why you suddenly fell at the border of my plane? Her plane had once been swallowed by the nothingness until there was only one city left. Although the nothingness had disappeared now, there was still some remnant aura at the border. Yes. Chao Kuan nodded and continued. It's also a coincidence that the exit is just there. So to enter our plane, we'll have to trouble fellow Daoist Fong Fong to let us go. All right. Pear's eyes lit up. She said excitedly, shunning, are you going to our plane? Why don't you stay for a few more days? As she spoke, she reached out to pull her, but was stopped by Chef again. Fellow Daoist, you're thinking too much. We're just passing by. Go away, little bitch. Pear immediately glared back. So what if you're a disciple? Let go of my idol. Seeing that the two of them were about to fight, Shunning was still chewing on her fruit nonchalantly. Instead, Lone Moon directly interjected. All right, let's get going. Only then did he stop the two brainless fans. Pear opened the plane door somewhat reluctantly and sent the few of them to the border of the nothingness. Perhaps knowing that her abilities were limited, she did not force herself to follow them over. Chef was instantly in a good mood. Chapter 608. Chao Cohen took out a round compass and tossed it forward. Immediately, the compass flew up and a red light flashed in the center. As if guiding the way, it drew a long line of light and pointed straight in a direction to the left. The door is over there. Chao Cohen pointed in that direction and led the few of them in that direction. The few of them exchanged a look before following and stepping into the void. They did not walk far. After about a quarter of an hour or so, the space in front of them suddenly began to distort. A moment later, they saw a passageway that looked like a plane door open in the void, but it was pitch black inside. We're here. Chao Cohen was delighted and walked a few steps forward. Just as he was about to enter, his expression changed as he thought of something. He looked back at the few of them and said, My lord, this passageway is not stable, so I don't know which plane we will return to. You must be careful. Lone Moon nodded and set up layers of arrays around the few of them. Chao Cohen took a deep breath and walked in. In the next instant, they felt a chill beside them. It was obvious that they had already arrived in another world, but it was still pitch black all around them. In the distance, they could faintly hear a strange rustling sound, as if something was approaching. Not good. Chao Cohen's expression changed instantly. Panic flashed across his eyes as he hurriedly said, We've reached a small world that has already fallen. We can't stay here. With that said, he hurriedly conjured a seal to open up a space teleportation. Before he could cast the spell, his body suddenly swayed, and he opened his mouth to spit out blood. His expression became even uglier. The primordial chi that he had just recovered in the divine realm dissipated as if it had been punctured. Even his aura became weaker. Lone Moon's eyes and hands were sharp. He took the opportunity to pull him up so that he did not fall to the ground. He released his divine perception and immediately sensed that there was a dense group of unknown creatures not far away, rushing towards them at high speed. Direction, he asked in a low voice. That way. Chao Cohen understood what he meant. Suppressing the pain in his body, he pointed to the right and answered anxiously, The place behind the two realm gates in the north is safe. Lone Moon directly conjured a seal and instantly opened up a space teleportation passageway. Let's go. With that said, he carried Chao Cohen and walked over. Chef followed immediately. Just as he was about to enter, he realized that the person beside him was not moving. He immediately turned back and called out, Master! Shining did not answer. Instead, she stood rooted to the ground and turned her head to look into the depths of the darkness. She seemed to be deep in thought. What are you waiting for? Seeing that the two of them were not catching up, Lone Moon suddenly retreated from the passageway. Hurry up and catch up. Oh. Shining turned around and followed Chef into the passageway. The portal disappeared in an instant, and the few of them felt the scenery in front of them change. In an instant, they arrived at another place. Suddenly, a large expanse of white light appeared in front of them. Their surroundings were finally lit up, and they subconsciously squinted their eyes. Upon closer inspection, they discovered that they were in front of a tall palace. Immortal energy lingered around it, and fresh flowers covered the ground. This place seemed to be the peak of a divine mountain, and one could faintly see blue divine power in the air. However, the surroundings were extremely quiet. There was no sound at all. Everyone, Don't worry, this place is very safe. Before Chao Kun could finish his words, his figure suddenly swayed, and he directly fell down. Hey, Chao Kun! Lone Moon squatted down and pushed the person on the ground, but there was no reaction at all. His breathing also became weaker and weaker. It's probably because the situation in the plane has worsened, Chef said. The manager's power originally came from the plane. If there was a problem with his plane, he naturally became weaker. Lone Moon frowned, seeing that he could not wake the person on the ground. He simply set up a large-scale spell to temporarily lock the energy in his body that was about to collapse. Only then did he stop. Looks like he won't wake up for a while. He directly picked up the person on the ground and glanced at the palace in front of them. Let's go in first. With that said, he directly walked in. Perhaps because Chao Kun was unconscious, the array in front of the palace seemed to have lost its effect. There was no reaction at all. They entered the palace unimpeded. After passing through the palace door, there was a very large courtyard inside. There was nothing but a plain tree erected in the middle. This should be the panoramic view of Chao Kun's plane. Lone Moon placed Chao Kun under the tree and then carefully sized up this plane. The appearance of this tree was even worse than what Chao Kun had imagined from the water mirror. The entire tree was already 2/3 black. Only a few patches of green occasionally appeared, especially the green leaves on the tree. Almost all of them were already dyed black. Only a few scattered spots of not very pure green were mixed in. It looked like the problem of this plane was more serious than imagined. Lone Moon had to consider the problem of recouping his losses. What do we do now? I Ching glanced at the person who was still unconscious beside the tree. Chao Kun has not woken up. We do not know the specific situation of the plane. What else can we do? Lone Moon frowned. We can only investigate ourselves. Glancing at the plane tree that was almost completely dyed black, he suddenly had a premonition that this business was going to be a loss. The place we came from just now should be these black areas. To find out what happened, we can only enter those areas that are still considered normal to take a look. He examined the entire plane tree back and forth before pointing at the top of the tree. A small world that was already half dyed black. Let's go to this small world to take a look first. I Ching and Shun Ing exchanged a look. They had no objections. Lone Moon thought about it and turned around to set up a few array formations around Chao Kun. Only then did he try to open the passage to that small world. Perhaps because it was not his own plane, he only managed to open it after several attempts. Chef turned back to look at the person on the ground. Something flashed across his eyes. He opened his mouth, but did not make a sound. Only then did he pull Shun Ing and follow Father Nyo's footsteps. The three of them instantly disappeared from the palace. The next moment, they appeared in a desolate area. The sky was gloomy. There was nothing. Chef then spoke. Father Nyo, you suspect Chao Kun. He did not use a question, but an affirmative sentence. Lone Moon glanced at him before nodding. It's mainly because the timing of his appearance was too coincidental. It's better to be on guard. This plane was locked. They could only come out to seek help through the void. He also said that the location of the exit to the void was not fixed. There were so many places with the void. How did he just happen to appear near Pear's plane? Coincidentally, Pear even knew them. Coincidentally, they even defeated people from the Big Tao organization. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? Chef also felt that it was too much of coincidence. Then why did you agree to let him come here? Didn't he say that there was a powerful invader here? An invader who could deal with a manager had to be at least a manager level or above. Lone Moon turned back to look at Shun Ying. Don't we have one too? Who knows? They might be able to find out what Shun Ying's identity was. Huh. A certain person who was chewing on a fruit looked up. It was obvious that she was not listening at all. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Whose business was it exactly? Could the person involved be more attentive? It's none of your business. Eat your fruit. Oh. She continued to eat obediently. Lone Moon sucked in a deep breath and sighed. Forget it. He was already used to being angry. Let's see what exactly happened here. Before he finished speaking, a joyful voice suddenly came from his side. Look, there are a few living ones here. Chapter 609. Turning Back. they saw a figure flying towards them from the darkness. It was a very tall woman dressed in green. When she got closer, they could see that she did not look like a human. Although she had the shape of a human, her skin was dark blue, almost black. She blended in with the darkness behind her. Demon? But there was no demon aura on her. The three of them were shocked. They could not tell who she was. That person flew over and glanced at them. Suddenly, his eyes widened in shock. She was stunned for 2 seconds. For some reason, she suddenly felt a little helpless. She turned and shouted, "Senior, Senior, Senior sister, come quickly, come quickly. I found 2 of them alive. What are you making a fuss about?" A reprimanding voice came from behind her, and then another 3 or 4 figures flew over, replying as they flew. "How many people have you found? Is there a need to be so? Huh?" The person's voice paused, and he glanced over, as if he was also shocked, and looked straight over. "Senior sister, this." The person who appeared first turned to look at the woman in the middle who seemed to be the leader. That person then came back to her senses. She hurriedly said, "What are you still waiting for? Hurry and bring them here." The few people behind her finally reacted. They took a few quick steps forward. As they walked, they cast spells. Instantly, a spell that they had never seen before appeared under their feet. I Ching frowned. Just as he was about to conjure a spell, Lone Moon pulled him and sent him a voice transmission. "Wait, these people are a little strange. Let's wait and see first." Chef then put his hand down. The array under their feet flashed. The 2 of them felt their bodies lighten. They flew directly to the other side. So it was just a flying spell. I Ching immediately relaxed. He habitually turned to look at Shunning behind him. "Master." As expected, there was no array under her feet. She was still in the same place. "There's another one." The group of blue-skinned people seemed to have just discovered Shunning. Once again, they cast a spell and pulled Shunning over. The place they were at happened to be in the area where the black and white met. With this spell, the 3 of them were completely pulled into the area that was swallowed by the darkness. "Senior sister, what do we do now?" one of the disciples asked. The woman in the middle looked around, then looked back at the 3 people and said, "Bring them back to the camp first." With that said, he picked up Shunning, who was at the side, and flew into the darkness with her on his sword. When the others saw this, they also summoned their spiritual swords. As if they did not see that they had cultivation, 2 of them walked directly towards Lone Moon, and I Ching cupped their fists and said politely, "Young master, please excuse us." As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and pulled them up onto the spirit sword. Lone Moon glanced at the hands that were wrapped around his body, as if afraid that he would drop them. For some reason, he suddenly had a strange feeling in his heart. He felt that something was wrong. The further they flew, the darker their surroundings became. However, this didn't have much of an effect on high-grade cultivators. These strange-looking people seemed to have night vision as well. There was nothing obstructing them. The group did not fly for long. In less than a quarter of an hour, they stopped on an empty ground. Lone Moon took a look and saw dozens of people standing on the ground. Upon closer inspection, they were all old, weak women and children. Their expressions were not very good, and there was even a hint of dejection in them. These female cultivators landed directly and brought the few of them into the crowd. The group of people looked up, and their eyes lit up. They were not afraid at all. Instead, they surrounded them excitedly. "Immortal Masters are back." They looked with joy at the few people who brought them here and said anxiously, "Immortal Masters, when can we leave?" "Yes, Immortal Masters. It's too dangerous here. Hurry and bring us away. If we wait any longer, Fallen Night might come back again." "Yes, yes. Time is pressing." These people all looked flustered, as if they were very afraid of something. The leading woman who brought Shunning back just now stepped forward and said, "Everyone, don't worry. Our Dawning Pill sect is here to save everyone. Once the people from the sect arrive, they will bring everyone to a safe place. Moreover, Fallen Night never looks back. It has already passed, and nothing will happen again." The woman swept a glance at the crowd and continued, "This time, the area involved is very wide. We need to search the vicinity a few more times to prevent missing anything. Everyone, please calm down. Only then did everyone's expressions soften and they quietened down. Those strange-looking female cultivators then dispersed. Some continued to search for something, while others set up defensive arrays around them. Lone Moon frowned and discussed with I Ching via voice transmission. He then guessed the current situation. It was obvious that the people who brought them here did not have bad intentions. To be precise, they had good intentions. Some disaster might have just happened here. These female cultivators were cultivators from the sect who came to rescue them. That was why they brought them here, as refugees. But why do they look so strange? Lone Moon did not know the reason. On the way here, he had checked that these cultivators were not human cultivators, but they were not demons either. They seemed to be a type of cultivation that he had never seen before. But looking at the reactions of these mortals, they did not seem to think that there was anything wrong with people with blue skin. In any case, they trusted them very much. Just as he was thinking, a female cultivator suddenly walked over with a chair in each hand. She smiled at him kindly and placed it in front of them. Both young masters must have been frightened just now. Do you want to sit for a while? With that said, she turned to look at I Ching beside her. It was obvious that the chair was for the two of them. Lone Moon was stunned. He looked down at the chair and was instantly confused. Why was she so polite only to him and Chef? He subconsciously turned to look at the big group of old and weak women and children standing in front of him. But he realized that everyone just looked at them curiously and then turned back with a look of certainty. It was as if there was nothing wrong with these cultivators giving them chairs. He was stunned. He could only reply politely, "Thank you, Mrs. Cipino. You're welcome." The woman blushed and laughed a little foolishly. "Young master, please sit down. We don't know when the spirit boat will arrive. You guys rest for a while." With that said, she smiled again and turned to leave. Lone Moon used his divine perception to scan the chair. Finding nothing unusual, he then sat down. Chef at the side, however, took a step to the side out of habit. He turned to look behind him and said, "Master, sit." With that said, he even took out a plate of pastries and handed it over. Oh, Shening subconsciously took it. She grabbed a piece of cake and stuffed it into her mouth as she turned to sit down. In the next moment, the crowd that was bustling just now suddenly fell silent. More than 10 pairs of disapproving eyes immediately turned and fixed on Shening, as if she had done something that angered both humans and gods. The originally kind crowd was instantly filled with dissatisfaction and contempt. Even a few cultivators just now were the same. "Huh? Shening, can I eat cakes?" Shening was stunned. Suddenly, the spirit chi in the sky fluctuated. Someone exclaimed, "It's here. The spirit boat is here." Chapter 610. Everyone looked up and saw a white spirit boat flying over from afar. The spirit boat was huge and had 3 levels. They could faintly feel the chaotic aura above it. It seemed that there were already many people on it. Perhaps because the flat ground below was too small, the spirit boat did not descend. Instead, it floated above everyone. In a short while, 2 people dressed in the same clothes as the female cultivator flew down from above. They talked for a while with the leading lady here, then said loudly to everyone, "Everyone, this is the welcoming spirit boat of our dawning pill sect. It will bring you to a safe place." Everyone's faces lit up. The lady conjured a simple transportation array with both hands and continued, "Please use this transportation array to board the boat." With that said, she looked around and turned towards Shan Ying and the others. She cupped her fists and said to them, "Young masters, please board the boat first." Lone Moon and I Ching were stunned. Why were they boarding first? But seeing that no one around them moved, it was not good for them to ask more. They nodded and thanked her, then walked towards the transportation array and pulled Shening along. There was nothing wrong with the array. Once they entered, they felt a white light flash before their eyes and were instantly transported to the spirit boat. Indeed, the spirit boat was already densely packed with people. Like the people below, they seemed to have just escaped. Most of them looked like they had just survived a disaster. There were many female cultivators on the spirit boat who were also dressed in green. Seeing the few of them coming up, everyone turned to look at them curiously. Lone Moon did not know if it was an illusion, but he felt that the scene seemed to have quietened down. Even the two people beside the array were stunned. How could it be? The lady on the right stiffened. She looked at him and Chef and seemed to react after a while. She turned to the disciple beside her and asked, "Are there any empty rooms on the top floor?" The disciple was stunned. After thinking for a while, he nodded and said, "Yes, yes, yes." So was prepared for Uncle Master Zhang. But she went to investigate Sunset Night. That's why she did not come with us. Then let these two young masters stay there first. With that said, she turned to look at Lone Moon and Chef. Her gaze seemed to soften as she said, "Young masters, it will take us 3 days to reach the nearest town. We will have to stay on the spirit boat for a while. The boat is simple and crude. Please follow me first." With that said, she turned and walked towards the stairs. "Thank you." The strange feeling in Lone Moon's heart deepened, but he still followed. Chef and Shunning naturally followed behind. Unfortunately, before she could take 2 steps, a female cultivator beside her was shocked. She quickly pulled Shunning back and glared at her angrily. "Why are you following them?" "Huh." Shunning paused and took another step back. Wasn't she supposed to follow? "Go, go, go." The female cultivator grew even angrier and pointed to the lower floor in a very rude manner. "You can't go up, you can only stay below." "Why?" "Master." I Ching's eyes turned cold. He reached out and pulled Shunning back. His eyes turned to the woman. The woman felt a chill in her heart. She was stunned. She could faintly feel a terrifying aura coming toward her. "Chef!" Lone Moon hurriedly called out, stopping the person who was about to lose his temper. The woman who was leading the way was also stunned. She glanced at Shunning and said with some surprise, "She's your master? Then are you cultivators?" Lone Moon then turned and cupped his fists. "Immortal Elder, the 3 of us are indeed cultivators." With that said, he released some foundation establishment spiritual pressure. The woman's eyes widened. She was even more shocked. She hurriedly returned the greeting. "I don't dare to call you Immortal Elder. So it's 3 fellow Taoists. I've dubbed my eyes out." "Fellow Taoist, you're too polite." Lone Moon continued. "It's just that this friend of mine doesn't know the way. It's really not convenient for her to separate from us. You see, if they let Shunning leave their sight, she would definitely get lost." The woman was stunned. "Doesn't know the way? Can she get lost on the spirit boat?" But looking at the 2 men, she seemed to have thought of something. In the end, she still compromised. "Since we're all cultivators, then we'll arrange for her to stay next to you." "Thank you, fellow Taoist." Lone Moon smiled politely and thanked her again. The woman's face instantly turned red. She hurriedly waved her hand and smiled. "You're welcome. It's what we should do, what we should do." With that said, she directly led the few of them upstairs. When they went up to the top floor, they realized that although this spirit boat looked huge, it wasn't very luxurious inside. It seemed to be specially used to transport people. Apart from Lone Moon and Chef's room on the top floor, which was relatively well prepared, the rest were really just rooms. There wasn't even a chair, especially Shunning. She was directly shoved to the next room. When she went in, she realized that there were already more than 10 female cultivators in long robes sitting inside. Some are resting with their eyes closed. Some are regulating their breathing. More or less, they all had some injuries on their bodies. When they saw her come in, they all looked up. Several gazes swept over her. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but she kept feeling that those people were looking at her in a strange way. The female cultivator who led her in explained and went out. Only then did the people inside retract their gazes and go about their own business. They didn't pay much attention to her. Shunning didn't think much about it. After confirming that there really weren't any chairs inside, she took out a thick cushion and found a corner to sit down. She calmly nibbled on her own fruit. So boring. When can we start eating? She didn't sit for long. After about 2 fruits, a familiar fragrance wafted over. In the next moment, the door opened with a creak. Chef walked in on time with a table full of dishes. He looked straight ahead and stopped in front of Shunning. He put down the small table and handed over a pair of chopsticks. Master, it's time to eat. Oh. Shuning sped up to finish the fruit in her hand. Then, she took the chopsticks. In front of the room, full of people, she began to eat alone. The female cultivators hadn't recovered from the shock of the man, who suddenly came in. In the next moment, they smelled the fragrance of delicious food in the room. Even though the people here had already abstained from eating for a long time, they couldn't help but feel their stomachs rumbling. So the whole room was instantly filled with the sound of swallowing. So fragrant. Didn't senior sister just say that this woman was also a cultivator? Why did she still want to eat? And eat with such relish? Yet the two of them didn't have the slightest self-awareness of seduction. One ate noisily while the other held a glass of water and handed a handkerchief from time to time. She would even make a few introductions. Master, Father Nyo isn't here. Eat slowly. There's no rush. Master, try this stewed meat. I've been simmering it with spirit chi. The time is just right. It melts in the mouth. Master, this spirit soup is rich and fragrant. I still have some left. Do you want another bowl? Master. With every sentence he said, everyone swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The fragrance around them felt even more fragrant. Finally, someone couldn't take it anymore and stood up. As she walked out, she said, I'm going out to change shifts with junior sister. I feel much better too. I'm going too. Me too. I'm going out to get some fresh air. Wait for me. In an instant, more than half of the people in the room left. Yet the two of them didn't have any self-awareness. They continued to eat calmly, as if no one else was around. Chapter 6:11. 2 hours later, when all the dishes on the table had been swept clean, Shuning rubbed her stomach to show that she was full. I Ching carried the small table back to the room next door, and the female cultivators came back one after another. But it was different from the way they turned a blind eye to her. For a moment, everyone looked at her with an inexplicable envy, jealousy, and hatred. Shuning was stunned, and before she could think about it, a girl with a Dharma talisman on her arm suddenly came over and very naturally put her arm around her shoulder and said, Hey, sister, I'm Lu Lin. How should I address you? Shuning. So, it's little sister Shun. She cupped her fists and looked at her. Oh yes, that person just now. Is he your disciple? As she spoke, she even winked at her ambiguously. I guess so. Shuning nodded. Her eyes suddenly lit up, and she said with some excitement, I see that his cultivation is not bad. He is already at the perfected foundation establishment, right? No, to be precise, more than that. Don't hide it. I'm also a foundation establishment cultivator. How can I not see it? The other party gave her a look that said, if she continued to pretend, she would not be able to. With that said, she nervously rubbed her hands and said, I see that your disciple looks like an immortal. I wonder what his name is. Does he have a Tao companion? Shuning was stunned for a moment and turned to look at her from head to toe. You want to woo him? Woo. Lu Lin was stunned, as if she did not expect her to be so direct. Instantly, her face turned red, and she said nervously, Fellow Taoist, don't talk nonsense. I just admire him a little. I definitely would not dare to be rude to young master. I just wanted to ask if he has a Tao companion. Yes. Shuning nodded directly. What? Lu Lin's face fell instantly, and even the girl who was eavesdropping at the side showed some disappointment in her eyes. She even asked subconsciously, Who is it? Me. Lu Lin. Everyone. Shuning faintly felt that the enthusiasm that everyone had for her just now was extinguished with a whoosh. The way they looked at her became even more strange, with some indignation, as if a good cabbage had been taken by a pig. Shuning, what's with this uncomfortable feeling? Perhaps it was because Lu Lin saw that she didn't look too good, but she clenched her teeth and patted her shoulder. I didn't expect that a disciple could become a Tao companion. Sister, although you look like a man, I didn't expect you to be so good at it. Shuning stiffened. What the hell did he mean by manly? She had even changed into a new pink dress this morning. What man, huh? She subconsciously swept her gaze across the room and saw that all the girls were dressed in green. Her eyes widened as she instantly understood something. Oh, So that's how it is. Shuning, just as she was about to say something, Father Nyo's voice suddenly transmitted over. The door was pushed open in an instant. Indeed, Lone Moon was leaning against the door frame, his expression serious. In an instant, the room fell silent. Everyone's eyes turned to the door, and they could faintly hear a few gasps. Lone Moon, however, didn't feel much. He scanned the room and fixed his gaze on Shan Ying on the right. He said directly, "Come here for a while. There's something urgent." With that said, he turned and went next door. "Oh," Shan Ying responded. She was about to follow him out when her hand tightened. Lu Lin, who had just started a conversation, grabbed her hand tightly. She widened her eyes and said, "Sister, he isn't also your Tao companion, is he?" "Oh, that's not it." Shan Ying shook her head. Lu Lin heaved a sigh of relief. After a while, she added, "He's my father." Lu Lin was stunned. So old? She couldn't tell. Seeing that she was about to go out, she immediately reacted and pulled her back. "Then do you mind having a stepmother? Do you want to lose all your fortune?" "Oh, for all, oh Shan Ying." A hurried voice came from outside the door. Shan Ying then walked out quickly and turned to the left. Wrong direction, this way. So she turned back to the right, inside the house. Lone Moon casually set up a few isolation arrays. "I just went out to find out about the situation in this small world." Lone Moon recalled the reactions of those people when he went down to find out about the situation. He subconsciously frowned and said, "There is indeed a huge disaster nearby." Now the people on this spirit boat have all been rescued by the nearby sections. They are going to seek refuge. There are about thousands of people on the spirit boat. And it's not just this boat. I heard that all the sects have been mobilized. There are thousands of other spirit boats like this one everywhere. I Ching counted the number of people in his heart and immediately frowned. What kind of disaster is it? That was why it could cause such serious consequences. Even the combined forces of all the sects could only move all the people away. They call it Fallen Night. Lone Moon's expression darkened. He continued, "I have never heard of this name before, but I heard from the people on this boat that Fallen Night is a kind of natural disaster. It is invisible and formless. No one knows how it is formed, much less when it will happen. But everywhere it goes, people die. Only a few survive." I Ching's expression darkened. He asked directly, "Invisible things?" "That's right." Lone Moon nodded. "They said that the location of Fallen Night is not fixed every time. But once it happens, everything within a radius of 10,000 miles will be affected. The living beings chosen by Fallen Night will turn into ashes directly. Not even their bones will be left. Even the earth will become a barren wasteland." Barren wasteland? I Ching was stunned. As if thinking of something, he directly said, "Could it be that the Fallen Night they speak of is related to the expanding darkness of this small world?" "I think so, too." Lone Moon nodded. "The place where we landed in this small world is the border of the black and white boundary. The Fallen Night they speak of may be this darkness." He turned to look at the still, dark surroundings. "But the strange thing is, apart from us, it seems that no one else can see the darkness around us. Have they been eroded by the invaders?" Chef suddenly remembered that the invading manager had used a similar method to control Father Nyo. "No." Lone Moon shook his head. "I used my divine perception to check their meridians, primordial spirits, and even souls. I did not see any problems." "Then that was strange. What exactly was this darkness around them?" And it was not just these people. Even they did not feel anything wrong after coming in for so long. It was strange no matter how they thought about it. Shan Ying. The two turned to look at the person who was chewing on a fruit. "What about you? Did you discover anything? What exactly is this darkness?" Shan Ying was stunned. Then she tilted her head and said, "Nothing." The two's expressions became more serious. Even Shan Ying did not sense it. "But," she suddenly added, "this darkness might not be something from the outside." Lone Moon, I Ching, what? Chapter 612. If it wasn't from outside, could it be a local product? "What do you mean?" Shan Ying took a bite of the fruit and turned to look at them. "Haven't you checked the spirit chi in this world?" "Spirit chi?" Lone Moon hesitated and subconsciously released his divine perception. What does this have to do with spirit chi? Wait. He stopped mid-sentence because not only did he feel the spirit chi, but he also found that the spirit chi around them was not weak. It was not inferior to the spirit chi in their plane, but they were clearly in this darkness. Spirit chi was the purest and could not mix with other auras, not to mention yin chi, demon chi, and other yin chi. They would repel each other. Even when they were in the void, there were all kinds of energy mixed together. Spirit chi and other energy repelled each other, so it was not thick. But it was different here. Although they were in this darkness, the surrounding spirit chi was very gentle and stable. There was no sense of rejection. It was as if even the spirit chi was not affected by this darkness. It was as if it was born a part of it. How can this be? What exactly was this darkness? Why don't we look more closely? Shining added. The two exchanged a look, and their expressions became serious. They both closed their eyes and released their divine perception. Lone Moon directly observed the surrounding spirit chi. I Ching, on the other hand, probed into the meridians of the cultivators outside. He saw that whether it was the surrounding or the spirit chi that was absorbed into the bodies of the cultivators, it was not the five-element spirit chi that they were familiar with. Instead, it was wisps of a special black aura. Lone Moon's eyes shot open. Holy shit, what is that? I Ching reached out and activated a bit of the spirit chi in his body to test it. Immediately, a white light appeared in his hand. It was completely different from the surrounding darkness. But in less than a moment, it was swallowed by the surrounding darkness. The black light disappeared, but the aura was exactly the same. Could it be that this is not spirit chi? Lone Moon was shocked. It is spirit chi. Shun Ying suddenly retorted. She pointed at the neighboring area with her fruit. Aren't they all cultivating normally? But this color, every plane has its own differences, after all. Then this difference was too big, wasn't it? Wait, after talking for so long, she still did not say what exactly this darkness was. Master, I Ching seemed to have thought of something. In a low voice, he said, if the spirit chi in this plane was originally like this, then why was the spirit chi we saw different when we were outside the darkness? When they first arrived at the place where the black and white intersected, the spirit chi there was clearly normal. That's right. Lone Moon also thought of this problem. Why was the white part normal? Maybe it hasn't spread there yet, Shuning said. Pre-dash. I Ching paused, then his eyes widened. Master, do you mean to say that this darkness might have existed in this plane from the beginning, but someone let it out, and that's why it's like this? Yes. She nodded. How is that possible? Lone Moon still did not understand. How can you be sure that this darkness was not brought by an invader? If this darkness was not the work of an invader, how could it have spread to the entire plane? The plane tree that they saw earlier was about to turn completely black. Because everyone is alive. Shining pointed at the door. A lot. Lone Moon was stunned. Then he reacted. That's right. If that so-called fallen knight was really the work of an invader, then based on his power that was strong enough to deal with managers, how could these mortals of a mere small plane survive? And there were quite a lot of them. More importantly, the order of the entire small world did not show any signs of chaos. Malicious invaders entered other planes with only two motives. One was like those fellows from the Big Tao organization who wanted to directly absorb the power of the plane to strengthen themselves. The other was like the invader that Shun Jing dealt with previously, who wanted territory. They did not have the slightest bit of pity for the living beings of the original plane. They even had to be eliminated. Unless this invader was especially stupid. Not only did he snatch other people's territory, he even planned to raise other people's sons. But as long as living beings did not perish, the plane would not die. Even if he killed the manager, one day the world's consciousness would choose a new manager. By then, wouldn't the invader have snatched it for nothing? So no matter how one looked at it, this darkness did not look like something that invaded. Shining was right. This could have originally belonged to this world. But for some reason, it was released by the invader first. Lone Moon could not figure out the other party's intention, no matter how he thought about it. Looks like we have to find the source of this darkness first before we can find that invader. In the next few days, the three of them stayed on the spirit boat peacefully. There were more and more people on the boat. Shining was used to staying in the house and did not feel bored. But the few female cultivators in the room who initially did not pay much attention to her suddenly became warm to her. Not only did they come over to talk to her from time to time, but they also often asked her about Lone Moon. They smiled at her amiably, and all of them wore the expression of a competent stepmother. As a filial daughter, looking at this group of people who had ill intentions towards her father, shunning naturally, without question, without reservation, without hesitation, sold Father Nyo. "Oh, you're asking about what my Father Nyo likes." 3 days later, the spirit boat finally landed in an immortal city. Everyone disembarked and entered the city. The cultivators from the sects also prepared to return. Shining and the others came out late. By the time they disembarked, there were not many people around. Just as they were about to enter the city to find out about the situation, a female cultivator suddenly rushed over. She looked a little familiar. She seemed to be one of the people who lived with Shining these few days. Her name seemed to be Lu Lin. "Young Master Lone Moon, please wait." Perhaps because she was in a hurry, her face was flushed. "Is there anything else, fellow Taoist?" Lone Moon replied. Lu Lin's face reddened even more. After a while, she said that, "I wonder what plans young master has for the future. Are you going back to the sect? I wonder which sect the three of you are from. If it's on the way, why not? Why not follow us? We can take care of each other on the way." "There's no need." Lone Moon smiled politely. "We are itinerant cultivators and do not belong to any sect. We will not disturb you fellow Taoists." "I see." She instantly looked disappointed. She stared straight at Lone Moon's face, as if in a daze. Lone Moon felt goosebumps all over his body. He frowned and said, "We have something else to do. We will take our leave now." Lu Lin seemed to wake up. "Wait." She hurriedly stuffed the storage bag in her hand over. "Please take this, young master. My name is Lu Lin. I am a disciple of Dawning Pill Sect. If you need anything in the future, feel free to come to Dawning Pill Sect to look for me." With that said, she gave him a deep look, as if afraid that he would reject her. She did not wait for his reply and turned to walk away. What the hell? Lone Moon was stunned. He had cheated many people. This was the first time he saw someone rush to give him money before he even did anything. He subconsciously opened the bag and looked inside. The corner of his mouth twitched. There were not spirit stones or Dharma artifacts inside. Instead, there was a pile of food ingredients, spirit fruits, and snacks. Why did she give him this? Straight face, Lone Moon reflexively turned to look at Shining beside him. "What did you say to her?" "I didn't." Shining looked innocent. "Didn't you say why she gave me a bag of food?" Shining thought about it and added seriously, "Maybe it's because you, Father Nyo, are more handsome." This made sense. He accepted it, but something felt wrong. Chapter 613. This was originally a small city, but because various sects kept sending people here, the streets of the city were already filled with people. But it was very orderly inside. Perhaps because there were cultivators here, there was no chaos. Shun Ying and the others entered and realized that there were not only disciples from Dawning Pill Sect, but also disciples from other sections. Even in the west of the city, there were already houses made of sorcery, and many mortals were queuing up to move in. Lone Moon could not help but feel a bit of the modern atmosphere of fighting floods and disaster relief. He did not expect the sects in this small world to have such a harmonious relationship with mortals. Lone Moon decided to go to the Scattered Cultivators Hall first. They called themselves itinerant cultivators because itinerant cultivators were more convenient, and also because itinerant cultivators had always been the most well-informed. And the Scattered Cultivators Hall was an itinerant cultivator organization. He had already found out about it during the few days on the spirit boat. It was a place specially for itinerant cultivators without sex to receive and issue all kinds of missions. From finding rare herbs to hunting spirit beasts, there were all kinds of missions. So itinerant cultivators gathered there to gather information. As they had asked for the location beforehand, they did not spend much time to find the place. the entrance was filled with cultivators. The moment the three entered, a woman who looked like a manager turned around. "Fellow Taoist inside?" "Eh." The man stopped mid-sentence and stared blankly at the two people who had just entered the room. He was so shocked that he didn't recover for a long time. "Fellow Taoist? Fellow Taoist." Lone Moon called out a few times. Ah. The manager was stunned, then reacted and hurriedly welcomed them in. "Fellow Taoists, please come in. I wonder if you are here to issue a mission or to accept a mission. We just started cultivating not long ago. We want to come here to issue a mission," Lone Moon answered. "Fellow Taoist is an itinerant cultivator." The person was even more shocked. "All three of us are." Lone Moon nodded. "Three." The steward paused and scanned a few of them. Only then did he notice Shunning, who was at the back. He seemed to have thought of something and nodded in understanding. "I see. Then I guess fellow Taoist will have to wait for a while." The steward pointed at the densely packed crowd inside and said, "Today is the day of the new mission in the hall, so it's rather busy." After saying that, he thought for a moment and led them to a table at the side to sit down. The few of them followed him and sat down. Perhaps it was because they were unfamiliar faces, but the bustling room suddenly became much quieter. Most of the cultivators turned to look at them. There were many people in the hall, but the strange thing was that most of them were female cultivators. Only a few of them were men, with concealment array formations around them. Lone Moon did not mind. Instead, the steward who had just welcomed them seemed to be very curious. As he poured tea, he said, "I see that the two of you have already reached the foundation establishment stage. Your talents must be extraordinary. Why didn't you join a sect and instead became an itinerant cultivator?" As she spoke, her eyes seemed to be unable to control themselves and kept glancing at Chef beside her. "We're used to freedom and can't stand being restrained. That's why we became itinerant cultivators," Lone Moon replied. The steward frowned. She seemed to have thought of something and suddenly advised, "It's always difficult for itinerant cultivators to cultivate. If the two of you want less trouble, it's better for you to join a sect." With that said, she even gave Shunning, who was nibbling on a fruit at the side, a look of reproach. "Shunning, meow meow meow. Thank you for the reminder, fellow Taoist." Lone Moon smiled politely. After thinking for a moment, he continued to ask, "Oh yes, when we entered the city previously, we saw many mortals fleeing here. They said they encountered the disaster of Fallen Night. Isn't that so?" The steward continued, "Sigh. It happens a few times every year. The last time it happened was in a border city thousands of miles away from here. I didn't expect it to come here so quickly. This Fallen Night is so scary. I'm a little curious. Where did it start?" "Of course it's the corroding, vacant abyss," the steward blurted out. She suddenly thought of something and looked at the few of them with a look of surprise. "The few of you aren't also here to accept the mission to investigate the corroding, vacant abyss, are you?" "There's such a mission?" Lone Moon asked. "This was jointly issued by all the big sections." The steward explained, "This Fallen Night incident has been a threat for many years. All the sects have been investigating for a long time, but have not found the cause. They can only roughly confirm that it has something to do with the corroding vacant abyss. That's why they're calling for everyone to go in and investigate. But the corroding vacant abyss is extremely dangerous. It's very likely that you won't be able to return. That's why all the sects want to go together with itinerant cultivators. Although the rewards are generous, it's really too dangerous inside. Fellow Taoists, please don't take things too hard." "Thank you, fellow Taoist." It looked like the darkness came from the corroding, vacant abyss. The steward nervously emphasized the danger of the corroding, vacant abyss. Seeing that they had no intention of giving up, he sighed and walked away to help them with the registration procedures for itinerant cultivators. He looked at them with a look of pity. Before he left, he did not forget to glare at Shunning, who had been silent all this while. He seemed to be extremely dissatisfied with her laissez-faire. "Shunning, Mother asterisk her." The few of them did not stay long in the scattered cultivators' hall. After knowing that the darkness started from the corroding vacant abyss, they accepted the scouting mission that the steward had just mentioned. They also asked for a map and left directly. not far from the city. Lone Moon was about to look at the direction of the map when I Ching frowned and said, "Someone is following us." I knew it long ago. Lone Moon replied casually. "They've been following us since the beginning of the scattered cultivators' hall. It was just a few foundation establishment cultivators and a golden core cultivator. They probably saw that there were only 3 of them and wanted to kill them and rob them of their treasures." Indeed, not long after they flew out, 5 tall and sturdy cultivators suddenly rushed out and blocked their way. "Fellow Taoists, are you heading to the corroding vacant abyss?" The one in the middle, who seemed to be the leader, was a female cultivator dressed in blue. She smiled wretchedly and took a step forward. Narrowing her eyes, she scanned a few of them. "Why don't you travel with us? At least we can take care of each other." "Oh, fellow Taoist, are you sure that you only want to travel with us?" Lone Moon looked at the money bag that was delivered to his door and smiled. The female cultivator seemed to be dazzled by his smile. Instantly, her gaze on the few of them became even more heated. "Fellow Taoist, what are you saying? We are proper itinerant cultivators. It's just that the corroding vacant abyss is dangerous, and we're afraid that a beauty would get hurt. That's why we want to take care of you." "Beauty?" Lone Moon subconsciously turned back to look at Shening. Since when did her presence become so strong? Or could it be that these people were criminals? "In that case, we have to thank you." Lone Moon laughed coldly and scanned a few of them. Only then did he realize that they were actually all female cultivators. "Fellow Taoist, don't stand on ceremony." The female cultivator smiled even more happily. The greed in her eyes was about to overflow. "As long as you're obedient, Big Sister will definitely ensure your safety. In the future, you'll naturally be able to eat and drink well." Chapter 614. I don't lack good food and drinks, and I'm not interested in the same trade. Lone Moon's smile deepened, and he narrowed his eyes. "I'm just a little interested in the spirit stones in your storage bags. Why don't you take the initiative and take them out first?" The other party's expression darkened, but a female cultivator at the side suddenly laughed. "Ha ha! Boss, looks like this little beauty doesn't like you." "Boss, why do you have to be so courteous with them? I've never seen such a good-looking man. And one with cultivation, don't waste it." "That's right. I noticed when we just entered the city, they don't belong to any sect or have any backing at all. To be able to dual cultivate with such a beauty, I'd have no regrets even if I died." "Boss, if you don't go, we'll go." "That's right, boss. That woman over there looks useless. Let's take her down first." "Lone Moon, what do they mean?" He faltered for a moment. The beauties they were talking about, were they talking about him and Chef? In a flash, he vaguely thought of something. Before he could think carefully, the leading female cultivator's expression darkened even more, and she snorted coldly. "Oof. I was going to be gentler to you on account of your looks. Looks like you're going to have to do the hard way." He suddenly released the suppressive power of a golden core cultivator. "Then don't blame me for making a move." With that said, he directly took out a square jade seal, activated his spirit chi, and instantly that Dharma artifact flew up. "I want to see who can protect you." With that said, that Dharma artifact flashed and directly flew towards them. How dare they show off an inferior-grade spirit artifact in front of him? Lone Moon's eyes narrowed, and just as he was about to attack, he saw that jade seal suddenly turn to the side, and then with a loud thud, it directly hit Shenying's head, who was behind. It even made a clear and deep echo. Lone Moon, who was ready to attack, I Ching, who was completely defenseless. He watched as that heavy seal directly slid down from Shenying's forehead, leaving a square mark, and faintly the words "spirit-suppressing seal" could be seen. The scene was instantly as quiet as a chicken. Shenying, who had been watching calmly from the sidelines, stood expressionlessly on the spot. 1 second passed, 2 seconds passed. Lone Moon suddenly had a bad feeling. Master?" Even Chef called out subconsciously. Suddenly, Shenying's hand tightened. The half-eaten fruit was crushed into pieces. In the next moment, a monstrous rage emanated from her body. Although she was expressionless, her entire body seemed to be burning with raging flames. A terrifying aura instantly erupted from her body and swept across the entire small world. For a moment, the earth trembled and the mountains shook. With a series of cracking sounds, the entire world seemed to be unable to withstand the pressure and began to break apart. Cracks immediately appeared on the ground, and even the sky began to distort. The wind raged, and the sun and moon lost their radiance. The entire world was collapsing. F***CK. Lone Moon was shocked. He grabbed hold of the person who was about to go berserk. Shining, calm down, calm down. This is someone else's plane, hey. You can't just casually smash it. Master, I Ching was shocked as well. This has nothing to do with anyone else. Only then did Shun Ying retract her aura, and the surrounding collapse stopped. The 5 female cultivators had long been suppressed by the surrounding suppressive force and could not stand up. Their entire bodies sank into the ground, unable to move. Their faces were filled with shock and confusion. What just happened? Who were they? Where were they? Shun Ying picked up the seal on the ground and walked over step by step. What are you trying to do? Perhaps sensing danger, the female cultivator's eyes widened. She wanted to escape, but she could not move. She could only watch as Shun Ying walked over step by step with the seal in her hand and squatted down beside her. Then she raised the seal and pressed it hard on the top of her head. Seal, right? Leave a seal, right? I'll let you seal all you want. I'm a melon eater. Don't go crazy. You think I'm putting on a show? _ Hashtag with that said, she pressed the seal all over her head and face. In an instant, the 3 words, spirit-subduing seal, were deeply imprinted on her face. But Shun Ying did not stop. She directly picked up the spirit's sword on the ground beside her and carved a few words herself. Then, she pressed the seal on her entire body. Upon closer inspection, he realized that there was a row of imprints on her body. This meat did not pass inspection. Cannot be eaten. Wait. Shun Ying turned and walked towards the other women. She did the same and covered their entire bodies with the seal, especially in the most conspicuous places. Lone Moon quietly glanced at them and realized that the seal was not only on their skin, but also on their souls with a special aura. In other words, unless these people reincarnated, they would carry this failed inspection mark with them for the rest of their lives. No matter how high their cultivation level was in the future, they would not be able to get rid of it. It seemed that the female cultivator's sudden attack just now had really pissed Shun Ying off. Shun Ying covered them for a whole hour before her temper subsided. She returned to her lazy self. She turned and walked back. Then, she stuffed the 5 storage bags in her hands to father Nyo out of habit. Here, I Ching, Lone Moon. She didn't forget to pick up the loot even when she was angry. He suddenly felt that this daughter could be pampered a little more. Shun Ying continued to take out a fruit and took a bite. Then, thinking of something, she turned and added, I don't like this stepmother. What did she mean? Lone Moon felt that there was something wrong with this world, whether it was on the spirit boat or when they entered the scattered cultivators' hall. The way the cultivators in this world looked at them gave him a strange feeling. Even their attitude seemed a little too warm. At first, he did not understand what was so strange about it, until he met the 5 cultivators who robbed him. Their words seemed to reveal something. They were not only here to rob him. Their main goal seemed to be him and Chef, and they even talked about dual cultivation. At first, he thought that they were some kind of fiendish cultivator or demonic woman with special cultivation techniques. But now, it was obvious that they were not. If there was anything in common between these few incidents, holy shit, Lone Moon suddenly reacted. His eyes widened. There are no male cultivators in this world. Whether it was the robbers or the disciples of Dawning Pill's sect, they were all women, not a single man. At first, she thought that Dawning Pill sect was a sect for female cultivators. But later, she saw that all the people in the city were female cultivators. It's not that there aren't any. It might be that there are very few. I Ching thought of this as well. His face turned green. If there really were no male cultivators, when they said they were cultivators, the other party would not just be shocked but suspicious. Wait a minute. If there are so few male cultivators in this world, Judging from the way those people treated him and Chef so well back then, and how they treated Shun-Ing, who needed their constant reminders, they did not even try to hide their dissatisfaction. Could this place be the world of female supremacy? Shun-Ing replied, Lone Moon, I Ching, MMP. Chapter 615. The map distributed by the itinerant cultivator hall pointed to a place called Yaoru City. It was said that that was the only immortal city with a transportation array to the corroding vacant valley. Given Lone Moon and I Ching's speed, they reached that immortal city in a few days. They directly went through the transportation array to the corroding vacant valley. Almost at the instant they stepped out of the array, they felt a cold and gloomy aura hit them in the face. They saw a huge abyss in front of them, as if the sky and earth had suddenly been broken. On one side was still a wasteland, but on the other side was only a bottomless darkness. A thick black aura like ink was coming out of it continuously. It was already dark all around them, but the direction of the abyss was so dark that there was not a trace of light. Even when they used their divine perception to probe it, they could not sense any movement. Lone Moon subconsciously frowned. For a moment, he could not tell what was inside. At this moment, there was already a dense crowd of cultivators gathered in front of the corroding vacant valley. Most of them were itinerant cultivators, but there were also cultivators from various sects wearing the same school uniform. But everyone was watching from the side. No one directly entered. Lone Moon glanced at them and found that the majority of the crowd were indeed female cultivators. There were only a few male cultivators here and there, but they were either wearing light gauze hats or veils to hide their faces, hiding delicately at the side. Their cultivation levels were even lower. The highest was only at the golden core stage, and most of them were surrounded by a few women standing protectively around them. So when Lone Moon and I Ching walked out of the transportation array openly, they immediately attracted the attention of all the cultivators present. The surroundings were obviously quiet for a moment. At that moment, all the gazes were fixed on them. Some were surprised and puzzled, and some were even probing. There were even people who directly released their divine perception and brazenly swept over them, as if they were taking advantage of them. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. This was the first time so many people had brazenly offended him. Instantly, he felt a burst of anger. This F***-kept-up world of female supremacy. Subconsciously, he released his suppressive force and returned those presumptuous gazes back one by one. Instantly, a few cultivators' faces turned pale. Then, as if they were frightened, they hurriedly retracted their divine perception, not daring to probe further. Taoist Lone Moon. Suddenly, a pleasantly surprised voice rang out. A person with a sturdy figure, dressed in green clothes, and if it weren't for the extra 2 lumps on her chest, no one would be able to tell that she was a woman. She squeezed out from the crowd and walked quickly toward them with a pleasantly surprised smile on her face. There was a faint trace of excitement in her eyes. His eyes seemed to be shining as he stared intently at Father Nyo, who was at the front. "Why are you guys here too?" The 3 of them were stunned. "Who is this person?" The woman stared at Lone Moon for a moment. Suddenly, she thought of something and her expression changed. "You're not planning to enter the corroding vacant abyss too, are you?" She frowned and put on a worried expression. She looked around and finally fixed her gaze on Shun-Ing, who was at the back. She said disapprovingly, "Fellow Taoist Shun, the corroding vacant abyss is so dangerous. How can we let our 2 fellow Taoists take such a risk?" Shun-Ing, "Why is it me again?" "Fellow Taoist Shun, this is your fault," she said righteously. "As a woman, how can you let the man behind you take such a risk? What's more, fellow Taoist Lone Moon is your father. Listen to me and stop fooling around. Hurry back." With that said, she even gave Lone Moon a loving look. Lone Moon instantly felt goosebumps all over his body. Frowning, he said, "We don't know you, fellow Taoist. You don't have to worry about this. I will be careful. Even if I'm careful." She seemed to have thought of something. She paused and asked, "Don't tell me you don't remember me? I'm Lu Lin from the Dan Xia sect. We met on the spirit boat a few days ago." She reminded them slightly disappointedly. The few of them were stunned. Instantly, they remembered the storage bag full of ingredients. Futi Ying's eyes lit up. She was the first to remember. She blurted out, "Oh, prepare a stepmother." I Ching, Lone Moon, prepare a stepmother? What the hell? Lu Lin nodded excitedly. Yes, yes, yes. That's me. Lone Moon, son of AB asterisk TCH. Do you think I won't call Xinjing right now? Oh yes, fellow Taoist Lone Moon. Seeing that the few of them remembered, Lu Lin became even more enthusiastic. She stepped forward and looked straight at Lone Moon. She asked nervously, "Did the food from last time suit your taste?" Fellow Taoist Shun said that you like these the most. So these days, I went to various immortal cities to collect some more. I don't know if you like it. As she spoke, she hurriedly took out a storage bag and handed it over with a fawning expression. Lone Moon's expression darkened. He turned and glared at a certain foodie behind him. Damn it! What nonsense did he say to her? The latter silently took a step back. She looked at the sky and the ground, but did not dare to look at his eyes. She pretended not to know anything. Chef, the weather is so good today. A certain brain-dead disciple quickly cooperated and added, Yes, master. The sun didn't even appear in the sky today. Lone Moon, do you think that if you don't admit it, I won't deduct your food expenses? F asterisk CK, fellow Taoist Lone Moon? Seeing that he did not take it, Lu Lin looked confused. No need. Lone Moon's expression darkened. Lu Lin was stunned. Fellow Taoist, haven't you always liked these? I've quit. Can I? Lu Lin was stumped. Seeing his cold expression, she could only take it back. I see. Men are indeed fickle. But fellow Taoist Lone Moon's angry look is also very cute. The more Lu Lin looked at him, the more she liked him. Her eyes were as sticky as superglue, and her face was full of infatuation. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Goosebumps appeared all over his body like mushrooms after spring. This damned world of female supremacy. Let's go, we're going in. He turned and told the two prodigals, I'll settle the score with you when we get in. He was about to fly into the corroding vacant abyss on his sword. Lu Lin, who was staring at them in a daze, finally reacted. Wait, fellow Taoist Lone Moon. Even if you really want to go in, you can't do it now. Huh? Lone Moon turned back. Why? He turned to look at the center of the crowd, then looked at them worriedly. Seeing that they had no intention of giving up on going in, he sighed and said, This corroding vacant abyss is boundless. No one knows what's going on. To prevent everyone from getting lost inside, the sect masters and elders of the various sects are working together to set up a transportation array so that everyone can come back through this array. As he spoke, he pointed to the center of the dense crowd. Lone Moon subconsciously released his divine perception to scan. Indeed, he felt traces of spirit energy fluctuations in that direction. He turned to look at Chef. It's the 5-spirit transportation array. I Ching also discovered that array. He directly transmitted his voice. In this small world, as long as there's spirit chi, we can come back by activating the array. It was just that this array consumed too much energy for cultivators in the lower realm. Even high-level cultivators could only maintain it for a month at most. Lone Moon took a closer look. Indeed, there were a few soul formation cultivators in the center of the crowd. You guys should have the waste tokens of itinerant cultivators, right? Lu Lin continued. Later, when the array is activated, the waste token will automatically mark your aura. When you want to come out, just activate the waste token. Lone Moon thought of the waste token he received a few days ago at the itinerant cultivator hall. He thought it was just an identity token for itinerant cultivators. So it had this function. No wonder these people gathered here, but did not go in. They were waiting for the array to be completed. Thank you for the reminder, fellow Taoist. Although this array was of no use to the three of them, Lone Moon still thanked her out of habit. You're welcome. Lu Lin blushed. She looked at him with misty eyes again. Motherf asterisk her. The array is activated. Someone shouted. Indeed, in the next moment, a blinding white light suddenly appeared in the center of the crowd. In the next moment, A huge transportation array appeared beneath everyone's feet. Lone Moon looked down at the waste token in his hand. Then he turned to Chef and Shuning and said, "Let's go in." With that said, he did not stay. He directly flew up on his sword and followed the crowd into the thicker darkness of the corroding vacant abyss. Chapter 6:16. Lone Moon did not know if it was an illusion, but the moment he entered the thicker darkness, he felt something invisible brush past him. This feeling was very strange, as if he had fallen into something, but it disappeared in the blink of an eye. Shun-ing. He stopped in his tracks and subconsciously looked at the two people beside him. It was obvious that they had noticed it too. What was that? Shun-ing was silent for a moment, then shook her head. I don't know yet. Lone Moon's frown deepened. He released his divine perception and was about to head deeper into the Eraton abyss. Suddenly, a familiar voice called out from behind him. Wait a minute, fellow Taoist Lone Moon. Lu Lin chased after Lone Moon from afar, looking rather anxious. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He turned back to look. Fellow Taoist, is there anything else? Was he a sticky candy? Lu Lin stopped in front of the three of them and said worriedly, Fellow Taoists, this corroding vacant valley is very big. It's too dangerous for the three of you to go alone. Lone Moon and I Ching are both men. As he spoke, he glanced at the two of them, his eyes filled with pity. Why don't the three of you travel with my Dawning Pill sect? As she spoke, she pointed to the dozens of cultivators behind her who were dressed like her. We will protect you. There's no need. Lone Moon rejected directly. Hindrance. He turned around, intending to continue flying. Lu Lin said anxiously, but it's just the three of you, and we don't have a map of this place. It's too dangerous, a map. Lone Moon paused and turned around. You have a map of the corroding vacant valley? Lu Lin was stunned, as if she had just realized that she had let the cat out of the bag. She looked around nervously, then gritted her teeth and said in a low voice, To tell you the truth, it's not just our Dawning Pill sect that has a map. Every sect has a map of this place in the past, but we don't know if it's useful. The terrain of the past? Lone Moon caught the key word in her words. Yes. Lu Lin nodded. Seeing that he didn't quite understand, she continued to explain. Many years ago, the original corroding vacant abyss wasn't like this. It was rumored that this place was once a celestial, mountain-blessed land with dense spiritual energy. Many sects had established their sects here. It was only when nightfall descended that this place became like this overnight. She turned her head to look at the scattered cultivators of the various sects and continued. This time, there's so many cultivators here. Other than wanting to investigate the truth behind Fallen Night, the more important reason is that everyone also wants to come in and search for an opportunity. So that's how it is. I thought that this small world really had a sense of justice, but in the end, everyone was just here to pick up the leftovers. Putting aside the strange situation here, just the fact that there were so many sects that had fallen here made it seem like a very good mystic realm to pick up loot from. Although so many years have passed, the terrain here is no longer the same as it was before. But having a map is always better than just barging in. Lu Lin persuaded him even more seriously. So, fellow Taoist Lone Moon, why don't you join us? His expression darkened, and he changed his mind instantly. This was not their plane. Although they were managers, their powers were limited. Even if they released their divine perception, they couldn't fully explore this place. Since someone was taking the initiative to lead the way, there was naturally no reason for him to reject. Thus, his attitude became much gentler. He even habitually put on a businesslike smile and said with a kind expression, Then I'll have to trouble fellow Taoist Lu. He even cupped his fist politely, but found that the other party didn't react at all. She froze on the spot. Huh? Fellow Taoist Lu? Taoist Lu. Wait, holy shit. Why is your nose bleeding? Asterisk 2, asterisk the two of them narrowed their eyes in tacit understanding and turned to look over. Your sister. He clearly didn't do anything. All he did was smile. Keep your ambiguous wavy lines away. Senior Sister Lu, are you done? The tens of Dawning Pill sect disciples waiting on the spot saw that Lu Lin had not returned after a long time. They could not help but urge her from afar. They also couldn't help but look curiously at Lone Moon and I Ching. The stunned Lu Lin finally reacted. Her face turned red, and she hurriedly lowered her head to wipe away the blood from her nose. Then she turned and said, "Coming." She smiled foolishly and led the three of them toward the people of Dawning Pill sect. She first brought them to meet the Uncle Master who was leading the group, then briefly introduced the three of them. Lone Moon took a closer look. The leader of Dawning Pill sect was a late-stage, nascent, soul female cultivator. The rest of the disciples were mostly Golden Core cultivators. Perhaps because Lu Lin had informed them beforehand, the nascent soul cultivator did not object to their joining. She even nodded in a friendly manner. Instead, the other disciples turned around curiously. Their gazes were fixed on Lone Moon and I Ching. The fire in their eyes was no different from Lu Lin's. Lone Moon's expression stiffened. He felt goosebumps all over his body. Suddenly, he regretted agreeing to go with them. At the side, I Ching's expression turned cold. Then, he directly turned sideways and decisively hugged Shanning, who was nibbling on a fruit. He lowered his body and called out in a low voice, "Master." Shanning was stunned for a moment. Then, she immediately understood. Very cooperatively, she gave him a kiss on the cheek. "Seal." Instantly, the gazes that were fixed on him darkened. Then, they all turned to look at Lone Moon. Lone Moon, son of a B*TCH. Single dogs have no human rights. Serves them right to be their shield. Since everyone is here, let's go. In the end, it was the older nascent soul female cultivator who said this. Only then did everyone retract their gazes that seemed as if they wanted to skin him alive. But along the way, they still turned back to glance at him from time to time. There were even many disciples who deliberately slowed down the speed of their flying swords and came over to say a few words. "So, fellow Taoist, is called Lone Moon. One look, and I can tell that you are a good family man. Oh yes, I am called ***. Fellow Taoist, you really look like the friend of my Uncle Master's niece from the sect next door. Fellow Taoist, are you interested in joining our Dawning Pill sect? I think you are very suitable to be my little junior brother, the most adorable kind. Fellow Taoist, how old are you? Where do you live? Who are you? Are you married?" Fellow Taoist, the corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He silently recited the Clear Heart Sutra several times before he managed to maintain his composure and did not turn hostile. Logically speaking, he had been quite popular since he was young. The number of love letters he had received was at least a few dozen kilograms. He was already used to being confessed to and pursued by girls in public. But those were a group of soft and fragrant girls, all right? Not this group of girls in front of him. They were about the same height as him and had fierce faces. They stared at him from time to time and drooled. Apart from their slightly protruding chests, they were more manly than a man. Suddenly, he felt that the group of invincible sect Barbies were more pleasing to the eye than them. At least they were normal usually. These people only gave him the illusion that he was being forced to be gay. What's more, he was the one at the bottom. Father Nyo, calm down. Seeing that he was about to explode, Shanning could not help but pat his shoulder. Father Nyo, just get used to it. Chef added. He glared back at them. How could he get used to it? If you have the ability, don't hug each other. A degree. ***. Fellow Taoist Lone Moon. Do you want some water? Do you want some fruits or pastries? Lu Lin, who had been lazing at the side, could not help but be attentive. She dug out her storage bag, but her eyes were still fixed on Lone Moon, looking obsessed. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He glanced at the master and disciple who were eating fruits and watching the show. He only felt that a certain string in his mind snapped. He took a deep breath and suddenly smiled brightly. Shanning, I've thought it through. I don't mind being your second wife. Damn it, I definitely cannot be the only one who is blind. Shanning, Lu Lin, swoosh. A certain someone had already pulled out his long sword. Chapter 617. Ever since Lone Moon said that everyone's imaginations went wild, imagining a drama of the century. Almost immediately, all the gazes on him turned to shunning. It was different from the adoration from before. Now, there was anger, blame, disdain, and indignation in the eyes of a certain someone who played with people's hearts. If not for the fact that they were in the corroding vacant valley, they would have made a move already. Lu Lin's reaction was even greater. Her face was pale, and she looked sad and hopeless. She could not even control her sword steadily. She looked at the two of them and muttered to herself, "I guessed long ago that you two were not father and daughter. So, you two." Instantly, the way the others looked at Shan began to burn with boundless, murderous intent. Two words were written in every pair of eyes. Beast. Not satisfied with one, she still wanted to seduce the other. Shan, who was rarely tricked. Son of a B *TCH. Suddenly, she felt that the fruit was no longer fragrant. She turned to look at a certain father who suddenly felt refreshed. Shan, why bother? We were born of the same root. Why rush to kill each other? Lone Moon, fellow Taoist, would rather die than me. This is what you get for cheating me. I Ching. Indeed, everyone wants to snatch my master away from me. Draw your sword, little bitch. We're here. The nascent soul cultivator leading the group suddenly stopped and looked around. It was still pitch black. A trace of doubt flashed across her eyes. Strange, this should be the ruins of the sacred medicine sect. Why is there nothing here? Why is it so desolate? She took out a piece of the map in the shape of a jade slip and examined it carefully. As if she had confirmed something, she turned to look at the disciples and said in a deep voice, "We've arrived. Everyone, go down and take a look around. Be careful and don't go too far. This could be the source of the Fallen Night outbreak. Remember to be careful." "Yes, Uncle Master." Everyone cupped their fists in response and flew down one by one. Lone Moon and the other two hurriedly flew down as well. Lu Lin hesitated for a moment. Although she was sad, she still followed them worriedly. From Lu Lin's ramblings along the way, they understood that this darkness was very likely to have erupted from the fallen sects in this area. This place was obviously one of them. The moment they landed, Lone Moon and I Ching released their divine perception and scanned the surrounding area. However, he still couldn't find anything. There was nothing around him, but the darkness seemed to be deeper than the entrance. Since their divine senses didn't work, they could only look around with the other disciples. 3. Fellow Taoists. Lu Lin gritted her teeth and quickly caught up to him. "Don't go too far. It's easy to get lost here." They nodded, found a direction, and walked away. However, after searching for a long time, they didn't find anything. "Shan, did you see anything?" Lone Moon turned to a certain cheat. Shan took a bite of her fruit and answered slowly, "There should be soon." "Ah, what did he mean by very soon?" "Martial uncle, I found it." Before he could react, a cultivator suddenly exclaimed from behind him. Lone Moon and Chef exchanged a look and picked up Shan. In a flash, they headed in the direction of the voice. They saw a female cultivator from the Dawning Pill sect standing not far away. She said excitedly, "I found it. I found the ruins of the sacred medicine sect." A moment later, the female nascent soul cultivator who was leading the group also came over. "Where?" "Here. Here." She turned and pointed in front of her excitedly. Lone Moon subconsciously looked over. He hadn't noticed before, but now that he looked closely, he realized that not far to the right of the female cultivator, there was a tall wall. The wall was pitch black and irregular. It looked like half of it had collapsed. It looked like a dilapidated mountain gate. The sacred medicine sect is indeed here. The nascent soul cultivator leading the group was overjoyed. She walked forward excitedly. "Everyone, let's go in first." The other cultivators followed. After all, it was a large sect in the past. There might be something good there. Lone Moon also subconsciously released his divine perception to scan the broken wall. He could vaguely feel that there were all kinds of talisman characters carved on it. They looked old and very simple. They also had a special aura of life, as if they were alive. "Wait, that's not a wall." Alarmed, he reacted immediately. He waved a wind spell toward the group in front of him. It wrapped around the people who were about to cross the black wall and pulled them back. They were not prepared at all. Before they could react, they fell to the ground, including the nascent soul female cultivator. Fellow Taoist Lone Moon, what are you? Everyone looked confused. They were just about to ask when they suddenly heard a loud roar. That sound was very ear-piercing. Instantly, everyone felt a strong gust of wind sweeping toward them. It carried with it a huge suppressive force. Several golden core cultivators were directly blown away and smashed into the ground. They saw that the originally motionless wall in front of them began to shake. The ground suddenly shook violently. The entire ground was cracking, as if something was about to dig its way out. Get on your swords and leave this place. The nascent soul cultivator shouted. It's coming out. Only then did everyone react. One by one, they flew up on their swords. Shuning and the others did the same. Following a series of loud rumbling sounds, everyone then saw a lump of black stuff emerging from the ground. It was as huge as a building. It looked like a liquid and had no specific shape. It was completely black, but from time to time, something that looked like characters flashed across its body. There was even a sawtooth-like horn on its head. It was the wall that they had mistaken earlier. What? What is this? One of the cultivators exclaimed. In the next moment, they saw that lump of black stuff move. In an instant, it turned into a huge black demon beast. It had 4 legs and 6 wings. Its body was also covered in purple flames. Lone Moon immediately recognized that it was an 11th level demon beast. He blurted out, "Isn't this the purple flame beast?" He had never heard of a demon beast that could turn into a liquid. No. Shun Ying's eyes narrowed. Suddenly, she said, "It's a Jianli." What? Lone Moon was stunned. He subconsciously asked, "What, Jianli? Why have I never heard of such a demon beast?" It's not a demon beast. It's so big. If it's not a demon beast, what could it be? He stopped mid-sentence. He suddenly thought of something. Wait, Jianli? Why do these 2 words sound so familiar? They seem to have seen it somewhere before. Jianli. Jianli. Lone Moon was shocked. The spatial creature, Jianli. Yes. Shining nodded. Holy shit. Didn't it sound familiar? Back then, in the assistance information that he had been studying for more than 3 months, there was a special chapter on this creature. It was a shapeless creature that only lived in the cracks of the plane. Jianli. Suddenly, he felt that those cultivators who had come in with him and now had no idea where they were going to die. Chapter 6:18. Like the beast of chaos, spatially was a creature that moved outside the plane space. Under normal circumstances, it could not enter the plane, only when there was a crack in the plane or when there was a plane storm. Moreover, spatially was formless and had its own space attribute. Even if it invaded the plane, it was difficult to detect its whereabouts except for the manager. To deal with such a creature, not to mention these golden core and nascent soul cultivators, even immortals would be eaten. Step back. The leading nascent soul cultivator suddenly shouted, "This is a purple flame beast. Remember not to be burned by its flames." The other party obviously thought that Spatial Li was an ordinary 11th level demon beast, conjuring a seal with his hands to trap it. The other disciples also took out their weapons and prepared for battle, looking as if they were ready to fight. Lone Moon's heart sank, and he was about to remind them. Lu Lin suddenly came out and blocked in front of them, saying, "Fellow Taoist Lone Moon, you guys quickly step back, don't get close. This is an 11th level demon beast. You're only at the foundation establishment stage, and you are men. You can't block its purple flames." The 11th level was equivalent to the early stage of soul formation. Although dangerous, there are 4 nascent soul cultivators in their team, and so many golden core cultivators, it was not impossible. With that said, she gripped the sword in her hand tightly, blocking in front of them, saying, "Don't act rashly. We will protect you. Don't go too far away from me." With that said, she also gave a look to the few female cultivators beside her, who hurriedly moved over, as if intentionally blocking Lone Moon and I Ching behind them, with the attitude of protectors. Lone Moon, I Ching, before he could explain, the other side had already started, only to see the leading nascent soul female cultivator directly set up a huge array. The white array light fell towards the giant beast in the middle. It looked like it was about to trap it. Shit, don't use the array. Before Lone Moon could finish, the demon beast suddenly roared loudly. Just lifting its claws lightly, that array directly passed through as if it was non-existent. The leading female cultivator was shocked. Before she could react, she only felt a bone-piercing chill sweeping over, as if there was a huge aura rushing over. Immediately, all the spirit energy in her body dissipated. Her body became unstable, and she was directly sent flying. Lone Moon summoned a wind spell and caught the man in the air, but he was already unconscious. Spatial creatures had the ability to travel through space, so how could they be trapped by an array formation? In the blink of an eye, they had lost a nascent soul cultivator. Everyone's faces paled as they realized that this was no ordinary demonic beast. The other nascent soul cultivator reacted and shouted, "Let's go. Leave this place." Everyone was stunned. Only then did they fly up on their swords. Lu Lin also turned subconsciously, intending to pull Lone Moon back. "Fellow Taoist, hurry, out of the way." Before she could finish speaking, Lone Moon suddenly acted first. He grabbed her and threw her towards the female cultivator behind him. The fan in his hand instantly turned into a long sword. He turned back and instructed, "Shining, look after them." "Oh." Shining took out a new fruit and answered, "Chef, I'll leave the left side to you. Don't let it escape." With that said, his figure flashed and he flew out. Chef also disappeared from where he was. In the next moment, an oppressive sword wind swept over. Everyone felt their bodies become unsteady. By the time they reacted, everyone had already been blown behind Shining. Shocking sword chi shot up into the sky. A sky full of white sword rain appeared. Every sword, made of spirit chi, seemed to come to life. They directly fell towards the huge beast below. That huge beast let out a sharp and piercing scream. It was instantly minced into pieces. The purple flame beast immediately scattered into balls of black wriggling liquid. But in an instant, it was reborn again, and it transformed into a new shape. This time, it was a huge Lingyun immortal beast. "Chef, don't give it a chance to reform." Lone Moon reminded again. Spatially had spatial attributes. Once it recovered, it could cut open space and escape to other small worlds. The most effective way was to chase it out of the plane. I Ching responded. The sword moves in his hands became more concentrated. The sword chi in the air also became stronger. Even the cultivators who he deliberately avoided felt an unstoppable pressure. For a moment, their legs felt weak. Lu Lin and her fellow disciples were all stunned. This sword chi, this pressure, it was not at the foundation establishment stage at all. Even nascent soul, no, even soul formation cultivators did not have such terrifying sword chi. She turned to look at Shining, who was the only one calmly eating a fruit. She could not help but ask fellow Taoist Shun, fellow Taoist Lone Moon, and the others, what cultivation level are they at? Huh? Shining was stunned. She tilted her head and thought for a moment. Then she said, maybe a little more powerful than a god? Lu Lin, everyone, are you King kidding me? Lu Lin did not believe her words. She thought that she was just joking. She looked at the two people in the air again. At this time, Lone Moon had already stopped attacking. He turned and directly opened the exit of this plane. Suddenly, a blinding white light appeared in the pitch-black sky. The heaven and earth seemed to be torn open. An unfamiliar aura that did not belong to this plane came from inside. Lone Moon gave I Ching a look, indicating for him to rush the spatially over. The spatially was a creature that did not belong to this world. It cannot be killed here. I Ching also understood. He changed his sword move and directly forced the giant beast below towards the direction of the opening. The spatially also seemed to understand their intentions. It fought back even more crazily. Sharp roars came continuously, as if it could destroy primordial spirits. The cultivators could not take it anymore. They had to use their spirit chi to cover their ears. They bent over in pain, except for Xuning, who was at the front. Lu Lin felt that the golden core in her body was about to break. Just as she was about to lose, there seemed to be a gentle aura sweeping over. Everyone only felt their bodies relax. The sound waves that pierced into their primordial spirits disappeared instantly. "Are you all right?" Xuning suddenly turned back and asked, still eating that fruit in her hand. Lu Lin was stunned. She subconsciously replied, "I'm fine." The next moment, her eyes widened. Fellow Taoist Shun. The spatial Li, which was still being forced to retreat, suddenly split half of its body. A pitch-black sharp horn appeared in its black liquid body. It was the one that had just turned into a wall. With a shocking, murderous aura, it rushed straight over. The first to bear the brunt was Xuning, who was at the front. Lu Lin's face paled. She subconsciously wanted to rush forward to pull her back. Quick dodge, but it was already too late. The giant beast had already rushed over. Just as it was about to hit the person in front of it, there was a poof. The black liquid beast suddenly stopped in front of the two of them. Upon closer inspection, they realized that Xuning had unknowingly reached out a hand and was firmly grasping the long horn of the beast. It was obviously a very casual grasp, but the other party was unable to advance or retreat at all. She even had the time to look back at Lu Lin. "What did you just say?" Lu Lin looked confused. After a while, she replied weakly, "No, nothing." Indeed, the three of them were not simple cultivators. "Oh." Chapter 619. Lu Lin turned back to look at the huge beast in her hand, only to see that the extremely arrogant, unknown demon beast was now starting to sway in waves, as if it was trembling. "Xuning," Lone Moon suddenly shouted, still in the air. "What are you waiting for? Hurry and throw it over." This was not their plane. The door could not be open for too long. "Oh," Xuning responded. Only to hear a crisp crack, she suddenly twisted the hand holding the horn to the side, instantly breaking the black horn into two. "Ow!" Spatial Li immediately let out a scream, as if it was in extreme pain, but had to desperately suppress it. The waves on its body swayed even more, turning into two streams of water, pitifully covering the broken horn. So painful, but could not roll, it would die. But Xuning directly picked up the half-broken horn, raised her hand, and threw it towards the white exit in the air. The spatial Li trembled, turned around subconsciously, and rushed out of the door after its own horn. Horn, my horn, underscore. In the next moment, it disappeared in the white light. Lone Moon changed the spell in his hand, directly sealing the opening. The white light disappeared instantly. Everything returned to pitch black. Only then did the two fly back. "There's actually a spatial Li here." Lone Moon frowned. Logically speaking, as long as the manager was here, creatures like the spatial Li that lived in the cracks of space could not invade the plane. Back then, their plane did not have a manager. Godfiend and the others did not let a single one in. Is Chao Kuan already this weak? Only then could the spatial Li break into the plane. "I think it's not because of him," I Ching replied. He lowered his head to look at Xunying's hand and turned to retrieve a white silk handkerchief. He pulled her hand up and wiped it out of habit until the unknown black substance was all over Xunying's hand. As he did so, he conjured a dirt removal spell and said, "This kind of invading creature is not strong." He was able to break through the plane to seek help previously. He can't be so weak that he can't even withstand the spatial separation. Could it be that someone let it in? Lone Moon said subconsciously. The next moment he was stunned, exchanged a look with Chef. Both of them thought of the same person at the same time. The intruder who injured Chao Kuan. Was he the one who let the spatial Li in? But why? A small boss like Spatial Li was indeed a disaster to the beings of the three realms. But to a manager, it was a piece of cake. It was not as difficult to deal with as spatial storms or planar rifts. 3. Seniors. Lu Lin looked at the three of them with a complicated expression, but she did not dare to address them as fellow Taoists anymore. Even the way she looked at Lone Moon changed from the way she looked at him just now to one of respect. Although she didn't know what they were talking about, she felt that it wasn't something she could understand. Thus, he cupped his fists and bowed politely. "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" Lone Moon frowned and turned around. "No, no." She hurriedly shook her head, then pointed to the front and said with some apprehension, "It's in front, in the direction where the monster appeared. There seems to be something." Lone Moon paused and turned to look, only to see that the originally empty space suddenly shook. As if a curtain had been lifted, a large number of palaces began to appear, vaguely looking like a large sect. It's the Sacred Medicine sect," someone exclaimed, subconsciously wanting to go forward. But because of Lone Moon and the other two, he did not move, only looking at them questioningly. It seemed like this place was previously hidden in another space because of the spatially. Now that the spatially was gone, it was naturally released. These cultivators were all here in search of opportunities. This Sacred Medicine sect was originally everyone's destination. Lone Moon was not interested in this, so naturally he did not stop them. After using his divine perception to check that there was no danger, he allowed them to enter. Everyone's faces lit up, and they all bowed politely to them, then flew into the palace, completely changing their previous desire to win the hearts of women, completely treating them like unreachable seniors. Chef, on the other hand, scanned the palace that suddenly appeared and subconsciously asked, "Father Nyo, don't you think this palace, it's too complete?" Lone Moon finished, frowning even more deeply. He looked up at the mountain gate in front of them, where the words Sacred Medicine Sect hung high. According to Lu Lin, this Eraton abyss had been here for many years. However, the Sacred Medicine Sect was far too well preserved. It didn't look like it had been destroyed in the past. "Let's look around," Lone Moon instructed, and the few of them flew up on their swords, patrolling the entire sect a few times. Apart from the lack of any living aura, they still did not find anything. Instead, the cultivators of Dawning Pill sect came back with a large pile of things. Because this sect was well preserved, the things were very easy to find. They were all piled up in the storeroom. "Senior, we found the heritage of the Sacred Medicine sect in the Dharma depository." A female cultivator handed over a storage bag, looking like she was about to hand it over, not at all wanting to keep it for herself. Even the other female cultivators did the same, all of them coming over as soon as they found something. Lone Moon hesitated. These people were really honest, so he shook his head and said, "What you found is yours. We don't need these." "This." The cultivator looked troubled. "But it's all thanks to you that we found the Sacred Medicine sect. By right, these things should belong to him. Besides, if not for them, they would probably have died in the mouth of that demon beast." The few of them tried to persuade him a few more times, seeing that he really had no intention of keeping them, then turned and left. Lone Moon once again searched the empty sect, but still did not find anything. His expression darkened again. Strange. Why would Spatially hide this place? There was clearly nothing special about it. Should we go take a look at the entrance? Shining suddenly spoke up. "Entrance? What entrance?" Lone Moon paused, suddenly recalling that when Spatially appeared, it seemed to have disguised itself as a door. Could it really be related to the mountain gate? He subconsciously looked towards the mountain gate, and coincidentally, a cultivator of Dawning Pill sect was about to step out. The moment she took a step, the originally empty mountain gate was covered in a layer of mist. The whole thing shook, and suddenly, a cold aura rushed out from the gate, and the surrounding temperature dropped. "Holy shit!" Lone Moon exclaimed. Chef had already moved one step ahead of her, forming a sword light that crashed towards the female cultivator at the gate, sending her flying far away from the mountain gate. That was the ghost she of the netherworld. Chapter 620. A transparent barrier suddenly appeared at the mountain gate, and a large amount of ghost chi swarmed out from it, instantly sweeping across the entire sect. For a moment, the temperature plummeted, and it was as cold as ice. Shrill, ear-piercing ghost cries came from within. The ghost chi of the netherworld was different from ordinary ones. It was a place that only allowed souls to exist. Naturally, it had the power to absorb souls. The cultivators who had not even cultivated immortal bodies naturally could not withstand it. Almost in an instant, apart from Shun Ing and the other two, everyone's divine souls began to become unstable. They looked confused. Some golden core cultivators even had signs of their souls leaving their bodies. Lone Moon's expression darkened. He immediately flew over. With a wave of his hand, a sealing array sealed the entire mountain gate. The ghost cries stopped. Everyone's eyes gradually became clear. However, their divine souls were still unstable. The few nascent soul cultivators were still fine, but the other golden core cultivators could not stand still and started to vomit blood. Say, Senior? Lu Lin managed to stabilize her primordial spirit. She looked up at the people in front of her in confusion. The other cultivators also looked confused. What was that just now? Lone Moon's expression darkened. He scanned the crowd and said, "This is not something you can handle. Leave this place." With that said, he conjured seal with one hand. Instantly, everyone's jade token floated up. He tightened his grip, and everyone's jade token was crushed. In the next moment, he activated the large-scale transportation array outside the corroding vacant valley. Say, before Lu Lin could even speak, all the dawning pill-sec cultivators had already been teleported out, instantly clearing the area. I Ching flew over with Shun Ing in his arms. He looked up at the mountain gate that was already emitting dense ghost chi. He frowned and said, "This is a realm gate." Lone Moon nodded. Naturally, he also saw the problem. This should be the realm gate to the underworld, and it looked like it had been here for a long time. The human world has its own original source to guide souls. Why did they purposely open a gate to the underworld? If it was the immortal and divine worlds, it could be said that there was a problem. But the living beings in the human world could not withstand the ghost chi of the underworld. Moreover, after they died, they would naturally enter the underworld. What was the point of opening a gate here? And they purposely used the spatial separation to hide it. It looks like we'll only know the answer to this question after we enter the underworld. Lone Moon pointed at the mountain gate in front of them. Without hesitation, I Ching set up a defensive array around them before walking towards the realm gate. In the next moment, they arrived in another world. The darkness around them was even thicker, as if it had materialized and slid past them. It brought with it a bone-chilling sensation, and it was getting thicker and thicker, giving them the illusion that something was seeping into their bodies. Wait a minute. It wasn't an illusion. There really was something bone-chilling that was drilling into their bodies. "Chef!" Lone Moon reminded them loudly. The two of them flew on their swords at the same time, wanting to rush out, but that feeling was like a shadow following them. This darkness seemed endless, and no matter what they did, they could not get rid of it. Moreover, the divine power in their bodies seemed to be scattered by that bone-piercing cold. "Up," Shining suddenly said. The two of them paused and immediately changed their direction, heading straight up. As they went higher and higher, the darkness around them did indeed lighten a little. The horizon faintly revealed some green, and the bone-chilling cold around them also faded. The few of them looked down and realized that the whole area below them was occupied by a boundless watery area, but it was pitch black all over, and it was spreading to every corner. And the place they just came out from was right in the center of that darkness. Thick black covered the whole underworld, and they could faintly feel that it was spreading to every small world, just like the plane's original source. Lone Moon finally understood what this black was, and subconsciously exclaimed. Then he paused. That's not right. Why is it black? They had seen the plane tree before. It was clearly a big green tree. By right, the color of the original source should be the same as the plane tree. Just like how Chef's side was gold, and his side was purple, this plane should also be green. Unless someone changed the original source. I Ching said directly. Lone Moon's heart sank. He instantly remembered the plane tree that was about to be taken over by Black, and the realm gate and the so-called fallen knight just now. Instantly, he understood what was going on. The invaders had taken over and changed the netherworld's planar origin from the very beginning. Then, through the realm gate, The altered planar origin's power flowed through every small world in advance. Step by step, they devoured the entire plane until it completely collapsed. It was no wonder that Chao Kun suddenly became so weak. This was practically like a slow-acting virus invading, changing bit by bit from the original source. What was more troublesome was that the original source was already like this, and they had no idea how to make it recover at all. You are the reinforcements that Chao Kun invited? Suddenly, a cold female voice sounded behind them. Lone Moon was shocked and immediately took a few steps back, putting some distance between them. Only then did he see that a person suddenly appeared behind him, her whole body surrounded by layers of black original source chi, with a cold and gloomy aura. From the figure, he could tell that it was a woman. More importantly, her body also had the aura of a manager, just that it was not very strong. You are the person who invaded this plane? Lone Moon's heart sank. Not daring to let his guard down, he directly summoned his long sword. Invasion. The woman suddenly began to laugh maniacally, looking at the few of them even more fiercely. Is that what Chao Kun told you? To me, you are the real invaders? Suddenly, she waved her hand, and the originally calm original source below began to surge, instantly turning into numerous streams of water that directly attacked them, as if thousands of invisible giant hands were attacking them. Lone Moon released his divine perception, and as he dodged the attacks around him, he waved his sword, intending to counterattack. Suddenly, his body froze. The god power that was originally circulating freely seemed to be suppressed, unable to circulate. No, not just their god power. Even their power as managers seemed to be suppressed by something. It was the thing that had seeped into their bodies just now. Suddenly, they remembered that when they first entered the underworld, the aura that followed them like a shadow seemed to be the black original source chi below. That aura seemed to be suppressing their power. You invaders, all of you deserve to die. The woman's voice was cold, and a huge aura exploded from her body. The original source below churned even more violently, directly forming a huge wave, looking like it was about to drown the few of them. Lone Moon gripped the sword in his hand tightly, turned back and reminded, the original source here can suppress our power. Chef, use your sword chi. I Ching nodded, directly releasing a sky full of sword chi. Countless sword lights appeared, forming an airtight net, just as the huge wave was about to be blocked. Suddenly, a white light flashed in front of them. A familiar figure cut through the void, appearing in front of the huge wave. With a backhand, he conjured a Dharma spell that they had never seen before. Suddenly, green light shone, directly dispersing the huge black wave. Chao Kun? Lone Moon hesitated. The person who came was Manager Chao Kun, who had fainted under the plane tree previously. Quite timely. Chapter 6:21. My lords, are you all right? Chao Kun looked at the three of them anxiously after he destroyed the source. Lone Moon frowned and glanced at the worried Chao Kun. After a while, he nodded and said, I'm fine. That's good. He heaved a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to say something, the black source beneath him started to churn even more violently. Chao Kun. The eyes of the woman in black instantly turned red. She glared at Chao Kun, and the hatred in her eyes seemed to be overflowing. The black aura around her became thicker, and she directly rushed towards him. You deserve to die. Chao Kun was shocked. He instinctively summoned a barrier in front of him. The green light bounced back, and the black around the woman dissipated a little. Chao Kun's expression darkened. He waved his sword at the woman and turned to the three of them. Thank you for your help. I was able to find this intruder. This place is too dangerous. In order to avoid being affected by the polluted source, please return quickly. He looked at the woman anxiously and said, Only I can completely purify the source of this plane. Leave the rest to me. The three of them exchanged a look, but did not speak. My lords, please leave quickly. Don't worry about me. Chao Kun continued in a low voice. No matter what, I will protect my own plane. With that said, he did not wait for their reply. He charged out with his sword and fought with the black-robed woman. The two of them moved extremely fast. In an instant, only two shadows, one black and one green, were left in the air. Chao Kun was right. If they wanted this plane to recover, they had to restore the source to its original state. But the plane's source was the foundation of the plane. No one else could interfere with it. Only a spirit seed or a manager could change the source. Lone Moon and I Ching were managers of other planes. Not only could they not control the source here, it even suppressed their powers. So apart from Chao Kun himself, no one else could interfere. Of course, a cheat like Xuning was an exception. The two of them fought more and more intensely. Chao Kun was already injured. Now that he had lost control of the source, although he was not too badly injured, he was still at a disadvantage. However, this battle still had some effect. At the very least, circles of green origin chi appeared around his body. He was trying to restore this plane step by step, but such efforts were like a drop in the bucket for the origin that had been completely dyed black. After a short while, Chao Kun could no longer hold on. Master Wei. I Ching turned to look at Xuning and spoke hesitantly. Leave or stay? Lone Moon nudged Xuning and asked, Aren't we going to help? Xuning took a few bites of her fruit and said slowly, There's no hurry. Lone Moon and Chef exchanged a look. They seemed to have thought of something. Their eyes narrowed, but they did not move. Seeing that Chao Kun was unable to hold on any longer, even his body was becoming unstable. He gritted his teeth and circulated the origin energy he had converted with great difficulty to block the attacks. He cried out with a pained expression, Just who are you? Why are you doing this? Do you know how many living beings in this world will die because of the conversion of the origin energy? Ha ha! The woman suddenly laughed maniacally. The madness in her eyes deepened, and the deep hatred seemed to solidify. Chao Kun, these words coming from your mouth are practically sarcastic. Don't you know best why I'm like this? Chao Kun faltered. After a while, he seemed to suddenly remember something. His eyes widened. You're Mu Xiang. Why? Now you're pretending not to know me? The woman laughed coldly. Chao Kun faltered and then shook his head. Impossible. How could you open the plane door? You think that by sealing the plane, no one can enter? So before this, someone helped you invade. Chao Kun's expression changed. He looked at the woman, even more pained. I never thought that you would be the one who changed the source. Why? You were once a member of this plane. Now you want to join forces with other invaders to destroy this plane? Why? Of course it's to kill you. The darkness around the woman became even thicker. The darkness below also surged even more. As long as I can kill you, you scum, I'm willing to pay any price. Chao Kun's expression darkened. He looked at the other party with a pained expression. Everything I've done is to protect this plane for the 3,000 worlds, for the living beings in this world. Since you've already been banished from this plane, you shouldn't have invaded this place. This plane has nothing to do with you anymore. Who says it has nothing to do with me? The woman called Mu Xiang became even angrier. I've already returned. Don't think that you'll have an easy time. Just who should be banished? Chao Kun, do you really need me to remind you who is the real Mu Xiang? Chao Kun frowned. He cut her off with a serious expression. I didn't expect that after so long, you're still so stubborn. For your own selfish desires, you can abandon the tens of thousands of living beings in this plane. Shut up. Mu Xiang's expression changed. She seemed to have thought of something that she hated. She was so hateful that her entire body started trembling. Her eyes seemed to be spitting fire. All of this is caused by you. It's you. Chao Kun, you deserve to die. With that said, she seemed to be unable to bear it anymore. She directly rushed over without a care. Chao Kun closed his eyes and took a deep breath. No matter who helped you come back, even if I have to risk my life today, I won't let you harm this plane again. With that said, his body flashed with green light, and he also rushed over. The two of them fought again. But compared to before, Mu Xiang's attacks were even more ferocious. She was simply fighting with no regard for her life. She seemed to have been provoked by something. Every attack was a desperate attack. It was as if she wanted to kill the other party, even at the risk of getting injured. I Ching frowned. This kind of fighting style was a little too impatient. It gave the opponent a chance to breathe. On the other hand, Chao Kun fought very calmly from beginning to end. The green light around his body also became brighter and brighter. Even the center of the original source that stretched as far as the eye could see slowly emitted spots of green light and slowly pushed forward in all directions. But this speed was still too slow. Chao Kun would eventually run out of energy. After all, the entire original source was almost controlled by the opponent. Unless someone helped to restrain Mu Xiang and let him focus on returning the original source. Of course, this person had better be a manager. Lone Moon raised his brows and turned to look at Shunning purposely. Are we going to continue watching? Shunning turned back to look at him. She finished the fruit in her hand and took out a plate of pastries. It's not time yet. A hint of understanding flashed across Lone Moon's eyes. He directly kept his sword. All right, up to you. With that said, he snatched the plate from her hand and watched the show in peace. Shunning, Master, I have some here. Chef at the side hurriedly replenished. On the other side, the two fought even more intensely. All around them were the sounds of various spells colliding. Chao Kun's body was already covered in blood. His movements were also slowing down. It seemed like he could not hold on for much longer. So he looked over expectantly. But the three on this side did not seem to receive his pleading gaze at all. They stood at the side with no intention of coming over to help. Instead, Mu Xiang fought more and more fiercely. Although she was also seriously injured by Chao Kun, her movements did not slow down at all. Seeing that Chao Kun was about to be unable to hold on any longer, he turned back to look at the three in the distance. Gritting his teeth, he seemed to have made up his mind about something. He used all his strength to wave a palm to force the other party to retreat. He turned and flew down towards the original source below. He directly fell into the only green spot in the center that had recovered. Almost at the instant he landed, he directly threw out a Dharma artifact and began to conjure a spell. For a moment, the pitch-black underworld seemed to be split open. A blinding green light lit up. Chao Kun, how dare you? Mu Xiang was shocked. Her entire person seemed to break down. She rushed over crazily, but was repelled by that green light. Yet she climbed up again. As she rushed over even more crazily, she shouted, Chao Kun, Chao Kun, Chao Kun. Each cry was more shrill than the one before. It's okay now. Shunning, who had finished 3 plates of pastries, suddenly stood up. Lone Moon, why don't you freaking eat dinner before going? Winky face. Chapter 622. The green light grew brighter and brighter. The light around the Dharma artifact became even more dazzling. Even the originally pitch-black underworld seemed to be dyed, quickly turning back to green. Mu Xiang's expression became uglier and uglier, as though she wanted to rush past that Dharma artifact crazily, but she couldn't reach it no matter what. Instead, she was covered in cuts and bruises from the impact of that green original source. Stop! Stop! She gritted her teeth, mobilized all the black original source around her, and rushed over without a care. Chao Kun's expression darkened, instantly conjured several spirit swords, taking the opportunity to attack. Mu Xiang ignored the opponent's attack, stretched out her bloody hand, and instead sped up, risking the danger of being stabbed, and was about to reach that Dharma artifact. But another hand reached out from the side and picked it up first. A figure suddenly appeared in the middle, and at the same time, the spirit swords conjured by Chao Kun seemed to have encountered some obstruction and directly dissipated. Shunning glanced at the little green ball in her hand. Her eyes narrowed, and her palm tightened. Instantly, that soaring green light on the ball dimmed. Even the green original source that was continuously changing below stopped, as though the pause button had been pressed. Mas, madam. Chao Kun was stunned and looked at Shun-Ing in disbelief. Why are you doing this? Instead, Mu Xiang reacted first, without the suppression of that green light. The black aura around her rose sharply, as though she was in a killing frenzy, and without thinking, She directly raised her sword and slashed towards Shuning, who was closest to her. These invaders all deserve to die. Master! I Ching, who was a step slower, was shocked. Just as he was about to attack, he saw Shuning suddenly stretch out a finger, and with a series of cracking sounds, the sword in the other party's hand broke inch by inch, and before it could even touch the other party's palm, it had already turned into ashes. Mu Xiang could not retract her momentum in time, and could only watch as that finger poked all the way to her forehead. For a moment, the energy around her dispersed and could no longer condense. The black aura also directly dispersed, revealing her original figure. Her heart sank, and she raised her hand, wanting to continue attacking, but she could not exert any strength and could only wave her empty fists and hit forward. Unfortunately, she was shorter than Shuning. She was blocked by Shunying's finger on her forehead. Her arms were not long enough to hit Shuning. She could only draw circles on one side. The scene suddenly became comical. In an instant, it went from a high-end Kings game between managers to a Bronzes game between kids. I Ching, who rushed over Lone Moon, who had been watching the entire show. It wasn't easy for Shuning to find someone shorter than her, so she was trying her best to humiliate him. This was too shameful. Why did shorties make things difficult for shorties? Let me go! Let me go! Mu Xiang's anger grew as she glared at Shuning. You despicable invaders. Oh! Shuning paused and tilted her head. But I didn't grab you. Mu Xiang stiffened, as if she had just reacted. She was only blocked from moving forward and was not caught. She turned around and wanted to retreat. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He raised his hand and set up a sword array. Thin and dense sword chi instantly trapped Mu Xiang, who had just regained her senses. Catch her now. Straight face. Did everyone who fought with Shuning have a drop in their IQ? It was already too late for Mu Xiang to run. She wanted to break out of the sword chi, but realized that it was useless. Her body was empty, and she couldn't use any power at all. Her face paled instantly. She looked at Shuning in front of her in disbelief. What did you do to me? She was clearly still in the plane. Why couldn't she use her own power? Not only that, even her connection with the original source seemed to be cut off. It's convenient to talk, Shuning replied. She habitually took out a fruit and took a bite. Let's talk about a fruit. All of you deserve to die. Her expression became even crazier. She had no intention of communicating at all. Her eyes were fixed on the green ball Dharma artifact in Shunying's other hand. You like it? Shuning pinched the little ball and handed it over. I'll give it to you. Mu Xiang was stunned. Even the hatred on her face froze. My lord. Chao Kuan also rushed over from below. He glanced at the trapped Mu Xiang. A hint of joy flashed across his eyes. He hurriedly cupped his fists and bowed to the few of them. Thank you three for your help. This plane can finally be saved. Don't be in a hurry to thank me. Lone Moon dodged his bow. He smiled and said, whether I'm helping you or not, it's not certain yet. His expression froze for a moment. He immediately regained his lost look. His eyes swept across the green ball in Shunying's hand. Lord Lone Moon's words, what do you mean? We just feel that you seem to have some things that you haven't explained to us clearly. For example, Lone Moon's smile deepened. He turned to look at the people in the sword array. About her. Chao Kuan's face paled for a moment. A hint of panic flashed across his face. He didn't seem to know how to answer. Mu Xiang, who was at the side, suddenly laughed. Ha ha! So you didn't tell them at all what you did. Chao Kuan, you're still as despicable and shameless as before. Shut up. Chao Kuan's gaze sharpened. A murderous intent surfaced in his eyes. Why? Did I say something wrong? Mu Xiang laughed even more wildly, but there was a hint of desolation in her eyes. Why don't you tell them how you came to this plane, and how you snatched this plane from my hand step by step? Snatched the plane? The three of them were stunned. They turned to look at Chao Kuan. So Mu Xiang was the original manager of this plane? No wonder she had the aura of a manager on her. They originally thought that she was the same as the person who invaded Chef's plane. She used to be a manager of another plane. They didn't expect her to be from this plane, but Chao Kuan was indeed a manager. How could there be two managers in one plane? A hint of panic flashed across Chao Kuen's eyes. He hurriedly retorted, "This is the choice of the world's consciousness. This plane chose me." Bullsh asterisk T. The anger in Mu Xiang's eyes intensified. She glared at him as if she wanted to swallow him alive. "Do you think I can't tell? You came here to obtain the ability of a manager, but you don't have the right to be recognized by the world's consciousness. That's why you killed all the living beings in this world and forcefully changed the original source. If not for that, how could you become a manager?" Chao Kuen's face darkened. The murderous aura around him intensified. He retorted directly, "Don't forget that the one who destroyed the world and was reborn was you." "Shut up." Mu Xiang's eyes turned red instantly. "You still have the cheek to mention the destruction of the world. It was you who opened the plane door and let those invaders from the Big Tao organization in to destroy as they pleased. You made me think that the plane was close to collapse. That was why I was in such a hurry to retrieve the original source. All the living beings in the world were born from the original source. Retrieving the original source was equivalent to destroying the world." Chapter 623. You can't even stop an invader. You're not qualified to be a manager at all. Chao Kuen's gaze turned colder, as if he had found his courage. The more he spoke, the more confident he became. "This plane being in your hands is the real disaster for the living beings in this world. I just made the most correct choice. You're talking nonsense." Mu Xiang's aura was unstable. She wanted to rush out of the sword array, but was blocked again. "Chao Kuen, it's clearly you who made this plane full of holes, the living beings in misery and suffering, and even caused me to drift in chaos for so many years. You've never cared about this plane. In your eyes, it's just a tool from start to end. Utter nonsense." He snorted, his gaze darkening. "I thought you were just impulsive at that time. I didn't expect you to be so stubborn. How many living beings in this world will die because they can't withstand the forceful conversion of the original source this time? This plane has already been destroyed by you once. Now you want it to be destroyed a second time. It's clearly you who's distorting the truth." Mu Xiang was anxious. She started to frantically rush out of the sword array. "Three sirs." Chao Kuen turned to look at Lone Moon and the others. He directly cupped his fists and said, "This is a feud between me and her. No matter who's right or wrong, it has nothing to do with the living beings in this world. I can stop being a manager, but I definitely can't let her continue to convert the original source. I hope that the three of you will not fall into her trap on the account of these living beings." Lone Moon glanced at Chao Kuen, who was full of worry. Hearing this, he finally understood something, which meant that Mu Xiang was indeed the manager of this plane. It was just that she was later replaced by Chao Kuen. This replacement method was not very honorable. It was obvious that the previous Big Tao organization also had a hand in it. That was why the other party had such a huge hatred towards him. But the conversion of the original source would indeed have a huge impact on the living beings. The fallen night they heard in the small world previously was the impact brought about by the original source. Those who died because they couldn't withstand the conversion of the original source. And those who became blue-skinned, it was the same. It was just the extent of the impact. If this continued, when the original source of this plane completely turned black, the impact would be even greater. But Lone Moon laughed. It had to be said that Chao Kuen was a very smart person, even if the secret of his plot to seize the plane was discovered. He also knew what was best for him. Just look at what he was saying now. He was worried about the survival of the plane, worried about the living beings of the world, and said such righteous words. He acted like a manager who was willing to compromise for the sake of the overall situation, and quietly put a big hat on them of plunging lives into misery and suffering. The possibility of them changing sides had been completely blocked. He could not help but turn back to look at the people in the sword formation. Mu Xiang's eyes turned even redder, but she could not resist at all. A trace of despair appeared on his face, and he glared at them fiercely. "Oomph. If you want to kill me, then kill me. As long as I have a wisp of remnant soul, I won't let you off. My lord, if we let her." We're not interested in your trivial matters. He narrowed his eyes and scanned him from head to toe. Why don't you explain to us how you woke up so coincidentally after we entered the underworld? Chao Kuen's expression changed. Why can't you say it? Lone Moon laughed coldly. Why don't I say it? You knew from the start that she was the one who invaded. You also knew that she was changing her original source. It's just that the underworld was sealed and you couldn't enter at all. You could only find someone capable enough to enter, so you came to us. You used us to open the realm gate and then reap the benefits. My lord, I'm not. He panicked and hurriedly explained. I really didn't mean to use you. Everything I said is true. She wasn't the only one who invaded this plane. I really couldn't deal with her, so I came to you. Is that so? Lone Moon's smile deepened. Then you mean to say that you knew the situation, but deliberately used us to be cannon fodder to scout the way? Wait until you were sure it was safe before coming out? No, my lord, I really did it for the plane. What does your plane have to do with me? Playing moral blackmail with him depended on whether they were willing or not. Chao Kuen's face turned even paler. He could not find any words to refute. Mu Xiang, who was at the side, laughed out loud. Ha ha! Admit it, Chao Kuen. You've always been such a despicable person. In order to achieve your goals, you'll do anything. You? Chao Kuen's face turned even uglier. He was stuck and could not say a word. After a while, he looked at Shunning frantically and said, My lord, please believe me. I didn't mean to use you. Shunning tilted her head. After a while, she replied, Oh, what did O mean? Shunning ignored him. She took a step forward and looked at the person in the sword array. Come, let's finish talking about a fruit. With that said, she took a bite of the fruit and continued. Can you tell me, who sent you back to this plane? Who is he? Mu Xiang was stunned for a moment. She subconsciously said, Why should I tell you? Because we won't interfere in the matter between you and Chao Kuen. Lone Moon directly interrupted. My lord. Chao Kuen's expression changed. All right. Something flashed in Mu Xiang's eyes. She sized her up and hesitated for a while before saying, I don't know who that person is, but he was indeed the one who opened the sealed plane and helped me come back. What does that person look like? I don't know. She shook her head. His ability far exceeds that of a manager. I couldn't see his face at all. He just suddenly appeared in the chaos. He said that he would help me seek justice. Then he sent me back here. And then, after he told me how to change the original source, he disappeared. She seemed to think of something she could not understand. She frowned and said, I never saw him again after that. I see. Shen Ying's eyes narrowed. She took a step forward and directly stuffed the little green ball in her hand into her hand. Thank you. Mu Xiang was stunned. Her eyes widened. She looked at the green ball in her hand in disbelief. You, my lord. Chao Kuen's face turned pale instantly. Shenning did not stop. She directly turned and opened the plane gate. As she walked, she said, I'm so hungry. Chef, Father Nyo is going home to eat. Yes, master. No problem, master. Lone Moon glanced at the two of them. He also directly followed in. The moment the plane gate closed, they could still faintly hear the sounds of fighting coming from behind. But this time, Chao Kuen was probably dead. Chao Kuen, it's time to settle the grudge of the plane. Chapter 6:24. Is this considered interfering or not? Lone Moon couldn't help but ask once they returned to the divine realm. He didn't see it just now, but now that he thought about it, that green ball was actually a spirit seed that hadn't taken form yet. That was why Chao Kuen released it so easily just now. I thought you wouldn't help either side. With Shun Ying's temper, it would be normal for her to beat Chao Kuen up after knowing the truth. But she didn't move just now, so he thought she didn't want to meddle. After all, that was someone else's plain matter, and although that Chao Kuen was despicable, he was right. If Mu Xiang wanted to take back the plane, she might really have to take back all the living beings again. Shining looked up at him and tilted her head. What's owed has to be returned. She thought about it and added, and the plane can't be without a manager. How can there not be a manager? Aren't there two dash wait? He stopped mid-sentence. You mean Chao Kuen actually hasn't become a real manager yet? Shining nodded. Without the recognition of the world's consciousness, it won't work. Even if the world's consciousness was forcibly wiped out, fake would never be real. That's not right. Lone Moon frowned. If he wasn't a manager from the start, then why would he have the aura of a manager? You and Chef have it too. Shining replied casually. What has this got to do with me and Chef? We were originally. He faltered and instantly understood something, his eyes widening. You're not trying to say that Chao Kuan was originally Mu Xiang's assistant? Shining nodded. Holy shit. So if that was the case, according to this, that Chao Kuan was too much of a scumbag. Assistants became assistants because of the power of managers. Chao Kuan was obviously not satisfied with being an assistant forever, so he colluded with those people from the Big Tao organization to scheme against Mu Xiang. No wonder after Mu Xiang destroyed the world. He only chased Mu Xiang out of the plane and didn't kill her directly. He was afraid that he would be affected too. His ability now was no different from a manager. It was only because all living beings were destroyed and the world's consciousness disappeared that he no longer suppressed it. It wasn't that management was better than management. Even he and Chef couldn't see the difference. What kind of scum was this? Master, is the person who helped Mu Xiang come back a monitor? It was rare that Chef did not immediately turn around to cook, but suddenly asked. Lone Moon thought of this too. That's right. Only monitors can surpass managers. Don't tell me that the person who helped her is Sister Jing or Mi Lo. The moment he finished speaking, he immediately denied it. No, it can't be them. Mi Lo was beaten up by Shun Jing and most likely still hasn't recovered yet. How could he possibly go and interfere in Mu Xiang's matters? It was even more impossible for Shun Jing. Regarding the matters of the Big Tao Convention, she already knew. If she was the one who did this, it was impossible for her not to inform them, and the timing didn't match either. Who could that person be? Could it be that a new monitor has appeared? Maybe. Shining finished the fruit in her hand and pinched the core in her hand. She narrowed her eyes and looked thoughtful. Possible? Shining threw away the fruit core in her hand before answering. Do you still remember the reason why my older sister did not discover the Big Tao organization? Isn't it because of you? Lone Moon blurted out. Didn't they say that in the same area, normally there wouldn't be two monitors? Because Shuning was in the immortal spirit plane, that was why he and Sister Jing did not discover the Big Tao organization. Milo had tricked them into the Void Land because of this back then. Wanted to test if Shuning was... Wait a minute. Shun Jing seemed to have said that Shuning was not a monitor. Then the mutual shielding between monitors would not exist. Which meant, back then, Sister Jing and the rest did not discover the Big Tao organization because they were helping Mu Xiang. Lone Moon was shocked and frowned after a while. But if he's really a monitor, the Big Tao organization has existed for so long. Why hasn't he dealt with it all this while? There are only two possibilities. Can't deal with it, or doesn't want to deal with it. I Ching guessed. He could even send Mu Xiang back and know the way to change the original source. That proves that he definitely has that ability. Lone Moon was even more puzzled. But if he doesn't want to deal with it, why would he help Mu Xiang? Unless he's not a monitor. Shuning finished and turned to look at the two of them, her gaze darkening. Then that's even worse. Lone Moon, I Ching, the two's expressions darkened as well. Indeed, it would be fine if the other party was a monitor. No matter what, the existence of a monitor was only to maintain the peace between the various planes. But if he wasn't, then his purpose of shielding Shun Jing and Mi Li's senses towards the Big Tao organization and letting Mu Xiang return to the plane must have a deeper meaning, especially when he still possessed powers that surpassed that of a manager. Such a person hiding in the dark alone, no matter how one thought about it, it just didn't feel safe. Lone Moon suddenly had a vague premonition that another cheat was about to appear. Just as he was about to discuss in detail with Shun Ying, the storage bag by his side suddenly moved. There was faintly the chi of the original source seeping out. He paused and thought of something, then hurriedly took out a communication talisman and transmitted a bit of immortal chi into it. Shorty? This was Invincible Sect's communication talisman, but only Shorty could send a communication talisman to the divine realm and still carry the chi of the original source. Elder Lone Moon, indeed, In the next moment, Ming Po's somewhat anxious voice sounded from the talisman. Is Secmaster with you? What's wrong? She opened her mouth to look for Shunning. Something happened. It's the original source of the River of Forgetfulness. It seems there's some problem. What? Lone Moon was shocked. Even Chef was stunned for a moment. He didn't feel anything strange, so he directly stepped forward and asked, what happened? I don't know either. Shorty became even more anxious. There was even a faint sound of crying. I sensed the original source of the entire plane, but couldn't find the reason. But in the middle of the River of Forgetfulness suddenly appeared a... She paused, as if she didn't know how to explain. Elder Lone Moon, you'll know once you come back. Lone Moon looked towards Chef. I Ching's expression darkened. He directly turned to ask Shining, Master. Shining nodded. Got it. Lone Moon then instructed Shorty. We'll go to the underworld immediately. No, it's not the underworld. Mengpa replied again. The problem is in the immortal realm. I'm in the sect. Lone Moon paused, then kept the transmission talisman, turned and directly opened the passage back to Invincible Sect. Almost in the blink of an eye, they returned to the rear hall of Invincible Sect. They carefully sensed Shorty's position and found that she was at the entrance of the Heavenly Palace. The few of them turned and flew over. From afar, they saw many disciples gathered at the entrance of the Heavenly Palace. As if something had happened, their expressions were not very good. What happened? Lone Moon directly asked. Only then did those people at the entrance turn their heads. At once, everyone's faces instantly lit up. Secmaster, they exclaimed in unison. In the next moment, everyone cupped their fists and bowed. Disciples of Invincible Sect, welcome, Sect Master back to the mountain. Lone Moon, I Ching. So the two of them were actually transparent? Chapter 625. Hey, Shuning waved her hand in greeting. Everyone's eyes lit up. Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Yu Hong, why are all of you gathered at the entrance of the Heavenly Palace? Sect Master, Elder Lone Moon. Yu Hong first looked at Shuning, then turned and pointed behind her. It's Shorty and junior sister Chingu. All the disciples made way for them. They then saw that outside the Heavenly Palace, there was light from array formations everywhere. A few large arrays appeared in the sky at the same time, emitting faint golden light from time to time. Immortal chi surged around them, and they could faintly see the shadow of God power. This was the divine race's sealing array. Lone Moon was shocked. He scanned with his divine perception and indeed saw Shorty in the center of the array formation. There were two figures beside her. It was her master, Roasted Chicken Gal, and Feng Ying. Shorty suddenly came out to set up the array just now. We don't know what happened, Yu Hong answered. Lone Moon frowned and said in a low voice, This is the divine race's array formation. You can't get too close. Hurry and bring all the disciples back to the sect. Divine race? Yu Hong was shocked, but she did not ask further. She just looked at Shun Ying hesitantly. Sect Master, don't worry, we won't leave for now. Yes. Yu Hong was delighted. Then, she turned around and beckoned the reluctant disciples to leave to return. Shorty is in the eye of the array. Lone Moon carefully looked at the array formation in the sky. He found the direction to enter and then turned back to say, Let's go over. With that said, the three of them flew over. In a moment, they flew past the golden light and reached the center. When they reached the eye of the array, they realized that Roasted Chicken Gal seemed to be injured. Feng Ying was carrying her and standing behind Shorty. The two of them were surrounded by a green protective circle that looked like a code. Ding! Welcome, Big Boss. The first to notice them was not Shorty, but the parenting system on Feng Ying. Even Feng Ying's body swayed. Perhaps because he was still carrying someone in his arms, the system did not make him kneel down directly. Sect Master. Shorty was overjoyed. She then stopped the array formation in her hands and walked quickly to welcome them. You're finally back. Hey, Short. Shining waved her hand. Lone Moon landed first and asked anxiously, What exactly happened? Big Boss. Feng Ying also rushed over with a person in his arms. He looked at Shunning anxiously and said, "Can you save Qingyu quickly?" She suddenly fainted. Even the system could not find a problem. "As long as you save her, I can't do." "What happened to roasted chicken gal?" Lone Moon frowned. "Shorty's forgetfulness." Shorty's expression darkened. She turned her head and pointed to a spot below. "The river of forgetfulness in the immortal realm suddenly has a problem." The three of them looked in the direction she was pointing and subconsciously activated the power of the manager. Almost instantly, the ethereal scene before them changed. Suddenly, a golden river appeared. This was a part of the river of forgetfulness in the immortal realm. The array that Shorty had just set up had sealed off one of the areas, and in the middle of that area, there was a very obvious black spot, as if there was a hole in the bottom of the river. "What is this?" Lone Moon was stunned. Why would a hole suddenly appear in the river of forgetfulness? "I'm not sure." Shorty shook her head. "I only sensed the sudden appearance of this hole, and there seemed to be a soul missing from the river. Master happened to pass by, and her soul was almost sucked into the hole. I stabilized her primordial spirit, but she never woke up." Lone Moon glanced at the black hole in the river, then turned to I Ching at the side. "Chef, hurry and take a look at roasted chicken gal." "What's going on?" Chef was the manager of this plane. Only he could tell what the problem was. I Ching took 2 steps forward. He put a finger on Qingyu's forehead and sensed carefully. His expression darkened. Suddenly, he conjured a seal with both hands and left a mark on her forehead. Then, he turned and grabbed at the black hole in the river of forgetfulness. He seemed to be grabbing something. In the next moment, a white light shot up from below and entered Qingyu's forehead. Roasted chicken gal, who was originally lifeless, heaved a sigh of relief. The stagnant life force in her body began to flow again. Her complexion slowly turned better. Little you. Feng Ying was overjoyed. "Feng Ying?" Roasted chicken gal opened her eyes in confusion. She paused for a moment. Then, she fixed her gaze on Shanning. Her eyes widened. "Little Ying, you're back." With that said, she pushed the man beside her away without hesitation and hugged Shanning. Lone Moon, I Ching, Feng Ying. Indeed, in the eyes of diehard fans, everyone else was transparent. "Chef." Lone Moon turned to look at I Ching. What you just called back from the hole was roasted chicken gal's soul power. I Ching nodded. He glanced at the black hole below. His expression darkened. Fortunately, it didn't go far. Soul power determined the strength of one's soul. Although losing soul power would not cause one's soul to dissipate, it would cause one to fall into an eternal slumber. But soul power was the power inside the soul. It cannot be separated from the soul. What exactly is that black hole? Why can it absorb people's soul power? It's not a hole. I Ching narrowed his eyes. "It's a gap." "Gap?" Lone Moon paused. A moment later, his eyes widened. "A plane gap. And unholy shit." He could not help but curse. That meant that roasted chicken gal almost fell out of the plane just now. Even little Shorty was stunned. "You're saying that there's an intruder in here?" "I can't be sure yet. I just discovered it." I Ching's expression darkened. He turned to look at Shunning beside him. "Master, look. We still have to investigate." Shunning shook her head. Their expressions darkened even more. Lone Moon glanced at roasted chicken gal, who was still leaning weakly on Shunning. "Chef, seal the gap first. We'll talk when we get back." I Ching nodded and flew directly towards the black hole. The power that belonged to a manager spread out instantly. In a short while, the black hole in the river of forgetfulness slowly closed up. Little Shorty also retracted the array that temporarily sealed the river of forgetfulness. The entire river of forgetfulness returned to its original state. Chef flew back. He pulled roasted chicken gal out of his master's arms and threw her back to Feng Ying. Then, he flew back with Shunning. The change in the river of forgetfulness this time was too sudden. Most importantly, the three of them did not notice it at all. Even the wristbands on their hands did not give any warning. Logically speaking, it was understandable that Lone Moon and Shunning did not notice it. Chef was a manager, A gap in the plane actually escaped his senses. That was too strange. Lone Moon and Little Shorty searched the surroundings of the River of Forgetfulness for a few days. They did not find any clues. But this plane was indeed missing a soul. Moreover, it was nowhere to be found. That missing soul could have been sucked into the chaos. Lone Moon could not help but guess. The plane gap in the River of Forgetfulness did not connect to other planes. It could only lead to the chaos. Very likely. I Ching nodded. He put down the pastry in his hand and said, "Master, can you find out where that soul is?" If it was not in the plane, there was nothing he could do. Chapter 626. Shining picked up a pastry and took a bite. She turned to look at him, then raised her hand to open a light screen. Rows of indecipherable data flashed by quickly. "It's not done yet. This data, you haven't been looking for it all this time, have you?" Lone Moon looked at her in disbelief. The data did not look like it had just started. He could not help but reach out to touch her forehead. "You don't have a fever, do you?" She was actually taking the initiative to help. Did she run away from home because of laziness? Shan Ing, son of a B *TCH. The area of the chaos is too big. It's not easy to find the lost soul. Shan Ing said casually. As long as the soul doesn't go far, we should be able to find it. Lone Moon thought of the soul power of roasted chicken gal that Chef had summoned back. He was instantly relieved. If the missing soul really fell into the plane gap by accident, it should not have gone far. It was good enough that they could find it. Then we can only wait now. Lone Moon heaved a sigh of relief. He snatched a pastry and threw it into his mouth. "But Chef, you'd better check how the plane gap appeared." And it just happened to appear in the River of Forgetfulness. It would be fine if it was just a coincidence. But if it was an invasion, then this matter was probably not over. I Ching thought of this as well. Frowning, he seemed to have thought of something and was just about to speak. Just as he was about to speak, Yu Hong suddenly walked in. "Sect Master, Immortal Yu Shui under Emperor Biaoting of Qing, Zhe, continent wishes to see you." She cupped her fists and reported. "Ooh." The three of them paused. Yu Hong paused, then corrected herself. "It's Immortal Yu Shui under Emperor Biao who wishes to see you." "Oh, little Biao." The three of them suddenly realized. They had heard so many nicknames. They were not used to hearing his real name suddenly. "Yes." Yu Hong nodded. In the days that Sect Master and the two elders were away, he came here every day. He has been waiting for Sect Master for many days. "What does little Biao want?" Lone Moon asked. He even sent someone over. "No, not Emperor Biao." Yu Hong shook her head and said, "It's Yu Shui who wants to see Sect Master." In the 3,000 years that Elder Lone Moon and Sect Master left, it came here many times. It just so happened that it missed its chance. "Yu Shui." Lone Moon frowned. Did they know such a person? "Forget it, call him in." "Yes." Only then did Yu Hong turn around and walk out. Not long after, she came back with two people who were dressed in white and wrapped up like cotton candy. The one in front looked older and slightly plump. He seemed to be a little excited and walked very quickly. Raising his head to look at the three people in the courtyard, his eyes immediately widened and reddened. Then he ran over. Great Immortal! He was running in a hurry and didn't stop properly. He fell down with a plop and rolled all the way over like a snowball. With a bang, he hit the stone table. This bout was a little too much, yet he acted as if nothing had happened. He reached out and hugged Xinying's leg, crying and sniveling. "Great Immortal, that's great. I didn't think that I would be able to see you again in my lifetime. The heavens really have eyes, sob, sob, sob. Who are you?" Xinying tilted her head. I Ching's expression darkened. He directly pulled the white ball off his master's leg. "Speak properly. Is my master's leg someone you can hug?" It's me. Great Immortal." Yu Shui was stunned. He pointed to his face anxiously and said, "I'm a rabbit that eats grass." "Rabbit?" The three of them were stunned. Wasn't Rabbit teaching in Purple Night Palace? Yu Shui looked back and forth at the three of them. Seeing that everyone still looked confused, he became even more anxious. Suddenly, as if he thought of something, he clapped his hands and said, "That's right. Great Immortal has never seen me like this." With that said, he directly conjured a seal on himself. In the next moment, with a puff, his originally simple and honest face changed into a huge rabbit's head. There were even two big furry ears on his head. Rabbit, Lone Moon, and I Ching were shocked. Only then did they recognize him. Wasn't this the demon monarch rabbit that helped build the house in the realm of three purities? So it had a name? Oh, the one that gives carrots. Shun Ying also remembered. Yes, yes, yes. Rabbit was overjoyed. He hurriedly nodded his head vigorously, shaking the ears on his head. I'm the rabbit that gives carrots. You've ascended. Lone Moon looked him up and down. You're already a Stygian immortal. When did that happen? It's been thousands of years since I ascended. It's all thanks to those demon cores that great immortal left for me. Rabbit answered somewhat excitedly. But I'm a demon immortal, and I ascended to Qingze continent. That's why I didn't know that great immortal was also in the upper realm. Later, I heard the Emperor mention invincible sect, so I came looking for you. But I never saw great immortal. So that's how it was. Great immortal. Rabbit blinked his red eyes hard. I came specially to thank you for giving me and the entire demon race a new lease of life. If great immortal hadn't scared, oh no, taught them not to eat humans, they wouldn't have ascended to immortality so easily. Rabbit was the first demon immortal to ascend to immortality in the entire upper realm. You're very thoughtful. Lone Moon patted his shoulder. What a good rabbit. After so many years, it still remembered what happened back then. And the 10 Directions continent of the immortal realm was so big. It was not easy for it to find its way here. Lone Moon looked up at the man beside Rabbit. He realized that he was only an earth immortal and a human cultivator. Ums was shumming. Greetings, immortal supremacies. That man was stunned. He bowed respectfully to the few of them. He's an earth immortal who just ascended. Rabbit scratched his head and said somewhat embarrassedly, Celestial Emperor Biao Ting has some immortal fate with him. I was ordered to bring him to the Heavenly Palace. I happened to receive a message from Little Red on the way. I knew that great immortal had returned and rushed over. That's why I brought him along. Lone Moon glanced at him, not paying much attention. Great immortal. Rabbit looked at Shun Ying hesitantly. Why don't you join Invincible Sect too? Rabbit rubbed his hands and said anxiously, I've mentioned this to Little Red many times, but she said that she had to ask you first. I'm really useful. I can grow carrots. The three of them? That's really an amazing skill. No need. Lone Moon rejected directly. He was a demon immortal. Cultivating on the demon immortal continent was the most beneficial to him. You're doing well in Qingze continent. Why do you have to move here? What's more, raising a rabbit required money too, all right? Great immortal is right. Rabbit's ears drooped instantly. He subconsciously muttered, There's still an immortal stone mine in my cave abode. It's really troublesome to move. Then you'd better move here. Move tomorrow. Lone Moon immediately changed his words. Huh, rabbit, shunning, I Ching, why didn't you say you were a rabbit with immortal stones? 3. Chapter 6:27. Really, Rabbit was overjoyed. Even his ears straightened, his eyes shining as he looked at Lone Moon. Of course. Lone Moon nodded, smiling kindly as he patted his shoulder. We're considered old friends. There's no need to stand on ceremony. If you can't move it, I'll send a few more disciples to help you. All right, thank you, Great Immortal. No, Sect Master. Rabbit bowed excitedly. Then I'll go back and pack my things now. He turned and was about to leave. When he saw the person behind him, he paused, as if just remembering that he had a mission. But don't worry, I'll just inform Little Biao. Lone Moon glanced at the earth immortal beside him and said, This, fellow immortals, it's not convenient for Rabbit now. Why don't I send someone else to send you to Qingze Heavenly Palace? That earth immortal was easy to talk to. He hurriedly replied respectfully, Thank you, Supremacy. Lone Moon then turned to Yu Hong and instructed, Yu Hong, personally send fellow immortal Zhua to Little Biao to explain the situation. After you come back, send a few disciples to help Rabbit move. It's best if they're good at earth element sorcery." "Yes, Elder," Yu Hong answered. With that said, Lone Moon raised his hand and set up a teleportation array that led straight to little Biao's old nest. Almost instantly, a white circular array appeared beside him. Perhaps it was the first time he saw a teleportation array in the immortal realm, so Shuming looked at it curiously and thanked Lone Moon again. "Thank you, Supremacy." Then he turned and walked towards the array excitedly, standing properly in the array. Yu Hong was just about to follow, when her expression suddenly changed. Her eyes widened as she looked at the person in the array, exclaiming, "Elder Lone Moon." Lone Moon subconsciously turned back, only to realize that the enemy had suddenly changed. The array clearly had not been activated, but Shuming's body seemed to be scattering fluorescent light. Spots of white light suddenly appeared. No, not his body. His entire body was glowing. The light dissipated very quickly. Even his figure became fainter. So Shuming also looked confused, as if he did not know what was happening at all, his expression still full of curiosity. "This is the teleportation of the immortal realm dash." Before he finished speaking, he was about to disappear completely. "Chef!" In a flash, I Ching appeared in the array. Just as he was about to reach out to grab Shuming, he was a step too late. Shuming had already disappeared completely, leaving behind an unactivated formation, as if it had never existed in the first place. This! Rabbit was also dumbfounded as he stared at the spot where the man had disappeared. What happened to fellow immortals? What kind of spell was that? Lone Moon and Chef's faces darkened. No, that wasn't a spell. They didn't sense any aura of a spell at all. That person just disappeared into thin air. Even Chef, who was the manager, could not stop him. I Ching conjured a seal with both hands and used his sorcery to track the other party's aura. A moment later, he paused. He is no longer in the immortal realm. Rabbit was stunned. If he wasn't in the celestial realm, could he be in the mortal realm? But didn't he just ascend? Lone Moon and I Ching's faces darkened. Lone Moon turned to the two people behind him and said, "Yu Hong, bring Rabbit down first and arrange for the disciples to help him move. I will explain to little Biao about that earth immortal just now." "Yes, Elder." "Oh, all right." Although Rabbit was still full of questions, he obediently followed Yu Hong down. It was only after the two of them had left that Lone Moon and I Ching turned to look at the person at the table. "Shining, what does the warning mean? Why was there someone that even Chef could not catch?" As soon as he finished speaking, his eyes widened. That earth immortal just now couldn't be an invader, could he? It might have nothing to do with him. Shining shook her head. Then how did he suddenly disappear? Where did he go? I just tracked the data of the moment he disappeared. Shining glanced at the light screen and tapped on it. After looking at it carefully for a while, she said, "Chef was right. He went back to the lower realm. Just that they did not know which small world it was." "How is that possible?" The two of them were shocked. I Ching stepped forward and said, "Master, I did not sense the opening of the realm gate. How did the other party directly go down to the lower realm without going through the realm gate? It's not just back to the lower realm." Shining pointed at the data on the light screen and said, "In that instant, all his data and attributes were reduced by more than 50%. Reduced data." Lone Moon paused and immediately reacted. "You mean his cultivation has regressed?" 50%, that meant that he had fallen from at least an earth immortal back to the nascent soul stage. Yes, and it's within the normal range of his vital signs. That meant that he was not injured. Although the heavenly Tao would suppress part of one's cultivation in the lower realm, that was only suppression, not a direct drop. Apart from serious injuries, under what circumstances could a person's cultivation fall by half? Wait, regressed? Lone Moon thought of something and turned to look at Shunning. He rewound. There was such an example. Didn't Chef rewind to become immortal back then? You can say that. Shunning thought about it and added, "It's just that in that instant, there were other data anomalies. So he was not the only one who rewound. It could be everyone in the small world he was in. Huh? Lone Moon paused. What do you mean? That is... Shen Ying's eyes narrowed. That small world's time has been rewound. That was possible. Apart from the managers and the ancient gods of creation, nobody else could reverse time. Shorty was the only ancient god left here. She would not do something like this for no reason. That meant that the person who reversed time was intruder. Chef said directly. Lone Moon instantly thought of the hole that suddenly appeared on the river of forgetfulness. He could not help but curse. Shit, it was still the intruder's fault after all. Master, I did not sense the intruder's aura, I Ching said in a low voice. If there was a creature from another world, he should have been the first to discover it. An intruder who can reverse time naturally would not be easily detected by you, Lone Moon said. Lone Moon said, didn't that invading manager also occupy the entire small world before he was discovered? It's already growing mushrooms. I Ching's frown deepened. But if that's the case, where are we going to find that intruder? If they cannot sense it, then they cannot find it. Why don't we ask Little Biao? Shen Ying suggested. The two of them paused and reacted immediately. Holy shit, they almost forgot about it. Zhua Shuming was summoned to the heavenly palace by Little Biao. He must know which small world he came from. Lone Moon immediately took out a communication jade token and sent a bit of immortal chi into it. Instantly, the jade token flashed white and a familiar figure floated out from it. Little Biao's voice sounded. Young Emperor Lone Moon, I wonder why you are looking for me. Exalted goddess. Before he could finish speaking, he saw Shun Ying at the side. His entire body trembled. Hey, Little Biao, Shen Ying greeted. Biao Ting's legs turned to jelly. His tall and imposing figure instantly became shorter. He knelt down with a thud. Little Biao is here. Lone Moon, I Ching, how big of a psychological trauma was this? Oh. Chapter 628. Little Biao, we have something to ask you, Shen Ying said. Yes, exalted goddess, no problem, exalted goddess. Little Biao sat down obediently and nodded furiously. Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Did you ask Rabbit to bring an immortal called Zhua Shuming back to the heavenly palace? Zhua Shuming? Rabbit? Little Biao looked confused. Who? He's an earth immortal who just ascended, Lone Moon explained. Just ascended? Little Biao paused. Then realization dawned on him. Oh, you mean the person you Shui went to fetch? His surname is Zhua. I guess he's not a demon immortal? Why, you don't know him. Lone Moon looked at him strangely. I don't. Little Biao shook his head. This is the first time I've heard of this name. Then you and him. Little Biao did not know that earth immortal. Why did he bring him to the heavenly palace? By right, an earth immortal should not have the right to enter the celestial emperor's heavenly palace. It's a long story. Little Biao turned to look at Shen Ying. Then he said obediently, Exalted goddess, do you remember the first time Little Bird and I met you? I don't. Shen Ying replied instantly. Don't hit me like that. It hurts. Little Biao's mouth twitched. Then he smiled awkwardly. Exalted goddess, Little Bird and I had some misunderstandings about the divine weapon. We lost control and fought all the way to the lower realm. We met Exalted Goddess when we crossed the realm gate. It was Exalted Goddess who asked us to send Lady Xian Tong back to the sect. Do you remember? Oh, Shen Ying nodded. She did not look like she remembered at all. And then, he obviously couldn't remember, right? That must be it, right? It was because of that battle that I realized I lost something when I returned to the immortal realm. Little Biao scratched his head in embarrassment. What did you lose? Lone Moon asked. It's a heart-protecting scale on my chest. Little Biao's eyes flashed. That scale has been imbued with my dermic powers for more than 10,000 years. It's considered a supreme-grade immortal weapon in the lower realm. A few days ago, I divined that this scale had been picked up by someone, and that person had already ascended to the upper realm. That's why I ordered Yushua to pick him up and take back that heart-protecting scale. It's just a piece of scale. Is there need to go so far? Lone Moon frowned. Putting aside the fact that its beast body was already covered in scales, Losing 1 or 2 pieces was not a big deal. Since it had already fallen off, was it really necessary to ask for it back? It's been thousands of years. Even if it's a heart-protecting scale, you should have grown it back by now, right? Yes, it has grown back. Little Biao's expression changed. He looked around nervously and hesitantly. Then, with an aggrieved expression, he said, But this is different. How is it different? You're not a dragon. How can you have a long reverse scale? Because it became even more aggrieved. Perhaps it was because it was anxious. It gritted its teeth and instantly changed back to its original form. Immediately, a pitch-black miniature four-legged beast appeared on the screen. Little Biao raised his front paw and pointed at his chest pitifully. Because the new one is a different color. The few of them lowered their heads to look at his chest. Indeed, on his chest, there was indeed a different scale. The scale was in the shape of a heart, hanging in the middle. It was especially eye-catching. More importantly, it was actually pink. In the middle of a large patch of pure black scales, a pink heart-shaped scale suddenly appeared. From afar, it looked like a pink heart had been drawn on its chest. The originally mighty and domineering beast suddenly looked like a little girl. Pooh! The three of them could not help but burst out laughing. Exalted goddess. Little Biao looked like he was about to cry. Little Biao, wait a minute. Lone Moon raised his hand to stop Little Biao from speaking. Then, the three of them turned around and shrugged their shoulders. In less than a moment, 3 unbridled bursts of laughter resounded throughout the rear hall. Ah! Asterisk 3, what kind of strange pink heart-shaped beast was this? They were dying of laughter. Did the immortals of Qing, Zhe, continent know that their celestial emperor looked like this? Little Biao, you can't attack a beast like this. After all, he was a celestial emperor. Can't you get him some face? I feel so bad that I want to cry. The three of them laughed for more than 10 minutes. They bent over and laughed so hard that they looked like 3 cotton balls. Little Biao, you're a celestial emperor after all. Why don't you use sorcery to change your color? I did, but it didn't work. At most, it was just a smokescreen. When the time was up, he would change back. Then why don't you dye it? I can't. This is a heart-protecting scale. It doesn't stain. Pooh. Ah. No, he could not help but laugh. Little Biao felt bitter. After laughing for a long while, Lone Moon coughed a few times before he found his voice again. So, you want your scale back because of this PU, because of the color? Little Biao had already returned to his human form. He nodded vigorously and said, yes. If not for his image as a celestial emperor, why would he suddenly summon an immortal who had just ascended to the heavenly palace? You don't know anything about this, Swishumming? Little Biao nodded vigorously. I didn't expect him to be an immortal cultivator. I thought that the person who picked up my scale was a demon immortal. So that was the case. In other words, this Swishumming coincidentally obtained Little Biao's scale and brought it with him to the immortal realm. And Little Biao happened to want this scale back. That was why he summoned him to the heavenly palace. Then you should know which small world he came from? Lone Moon asked. I do. Little Biao nodded. He's in the Rainbow Light Realm. Lone Moon turned to look at Chef. I Ching nodded. It seemed like he had found the place. He heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he explained to Little Biao about Rabbit moving and the news that Swishumming might have come to the lower realm. He only skipped the part about turning back time. Little Biao's face was full of despair about the scale that fell into his hands back to the lower realm. He did not feel good at all. Exalted goddess. He raised his head weakly and looked at Shunning. You asked about this person. Are you planning to come to the lower realm? Then can you? That's enough. Lone Moon instantly knew what he wanted to say. If we find your heart-protecting scale, we will bring it back for you. Yes, exalted goddess. Thank you, exalted goddess. Little Biao was overjoyed. He felt as if his broken heart had been repaired. Lone Moon then cut off the communication and kept the jade token. He turned to Chef and said, since we've found the place, let's go to the lower realm. As long as they knew which small world it was, it should not be difficult to find Swishumming. Chef nodded. Then, He turned and raised his hand to open the realm gate of the Rainbow Light Realm. Lone Moon sent a message to Yu Hong and instructed her. Then, the three of them crossed the realm gate together. Almost instantly, the scene in front of the three of them changed. They arrived at a flatland. This was a small world with exceptionally rich spirit chi. It was comparable to the three clear realms and Fatty's holy arrival realm. Chef sensed for a moment and instantly found Zhou Shuming's position. Although Shaning said that his data had been reduced by half, and the few of them were prepared for the fact that his cultivation level would drop, they did not expect it to be this low. Chapter 629. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Was this lowering? Was this reheating? He glanced at the crowd in front of him, who was looking at Zhou Shuming curiously and excitedly. His face was still the same, except that it was a little immature. But his cultivation was not at the nascent soul stage as they had guessed, but a chi refinement rookie. The place he was at looked like a disciple selection venue for an immortal sect, perhaps some powerful sect. When they found their way here, there were already many cultivators who had signed up. Most of them were at the third or fourth level of chi refinement. Zhou Shuming was one of them. His cultivation was slightly higher than the others, at the seventh level of chi refinement. But compared to his earth immortal cultivation, which he had just ascended an hour ago, it was like heaven and earth. Fellow Taoists, Lone Moon could not help but call out, looking at him with a complicated expression. Zhou Shuming faltered, looking around before turning back. Fellow Taoist, know me? You don't remember me? Lone Moon frowned. It seemed like this time reversal was no different from rewinding. Even his memories had disappeared. Sorry. Zhou Shuming thought that he had forgotten, instantly looking guilty. I really can't remember. Where did we meet? How should I address you? Fellow Taoist? My Tao name is Lone Moon. Lone Moon's eyes narrowed. His tone changed instantly, and an excuse came out of his mouth. It's not a big deal. We met once a few years ago. You didn't bring any spirit stones then. You even borrowed 2 spirit stones from me for the teleportation fee. Have you forgotten? I Ching, shunning, what kind of lousy scam excuse was this? Who would believe it? I see. Zhou Shuming looked enlightened. I'm sorry. I actually forgot such an important matter. Luckily, we are fated to meet again. With that said, he hurriedly took out 4 spirit stones and handed them over. I'll return the spirit stones to you now. Thank you for your help back then, fellow Taoist. Master and disciple. He really believed it. Wasn't this person too gullible? Don't stand on ceremony, fellow Taoist. It's fate that we met. Lone Moon smiled and accepted the spirit stones generously. The master and disciple. He actually accepted it shamelessly. As expected of someone with the surname Nyo, his skin was really thick. Fellow Taoist Lone Moon, are you also here to participate in the Tai-Yin sect's disciple selection? Zhou Shuming asked casually. Fellow Taoist, Zhou wishes to join Tai-Yin sect? Lone Moon glanced at the people around him. I wonder what's so special about Tai-Yin sect? Fellow Taoist must be joking. Zhou Shuming said sincerely. Who doesn't know that Tai-Yin sect is the #1 sect in the world? Everyone wants to join it. However, the Tai-Yin sect is very strict when it comes to accepting disciples. I've worked hard for a long time and only dared to come here after I reached the 7th layer of Chi disciple. I see. Lone Moon nodded. Oh yes, I still don't know fellow Taoist Lone Moon's cultivation level. He cannot tell Lone Moon's cultivation level, so it must be higher than his. Foundation establishment, Lone Moon said casually. Foundation establishment. He was startled. Fellow Taoist, you're already a foundation establishment cultivator. Then, why are you here for the selection? He hurriedly pointed to a courtyard not far away and said anxiously, Fellow Taoist, you must have come to the wrong place. That's where the foundation establishment cultivators are selected. Tai-Yin sect has always valued cultivation. Since you're already a foundation establishment cultivator, you'll definitely be able to join. Lone Moon glanced at the courtyard and cupped his fists. Thank you for the reminder, fellow Taoist. Fellow Taoist, you're too kind. Zhou Shuming smiled kindly. Who knows? We might even be fellow disciples in the future. Then I wish you success, fellow Taoist. Lone Moon replied politely. He did not stay for long. After exchanging a few more pleasantries, he took the 4 spirit stones he got for free and left with Chef and Shunning. It was only when they reached the end of the street that Lone Moon asked, "How is Chef? Does that Shumming have the aura of an invader?" "No." I Ching shook his head. "I've just checked his body and soul. There's nothing out of the ordinary." Lone Moon's frown deepened. Could it be that this Shumming really had nothing to do with the invaders? Was he just an unlucky fellow who was dragged back to the mortal realm because of time reversal? "Where's little Biao's scale?" Shunning suddenly asked. The two of them faltered. I Ching then thought of this and replied, "Nothing. There's no trace of immortal chi on him. The scale is not on him." Which means to say, he probably hasn't encountered that opportunity. Lone Moon's expression darkened. He seemed to have thought of something. His brows furrowed again. "Master, what should we do now?" I Ching asked. Shunning tilted her head and thought for a moment. A moment later, she replied, "Wait. Wait? Wait for what?" The two of them exchanged a look. A moment later, Lone Moon's eyes brightened. "You mean wait for the invader to appear on his own? Is he that dumb?" Shunning habitually took out a fruit and took a bite. There must be a reason why the invader spent so much effort to reverse time. "Master, are you saying that he might be planning to change something?" I Ching reacted. Shunning nodded. "He only reversed time in one small world. That proves that he doesn't have the ability to affect the entire plane. And that's $2. It's Shumming." The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Where does $2 get this nickname from? $2 spirit stones? Yes, he's already from the immortal realm. Shunning continued. By right, the matters in the small world shouldn't affect him. He shouldn't have come to the lower realm either. But the invader purposely dragged him down to reverse time. Why do you think that is? The invader's goal might be related to Shumming. I Ching exclaimed. If that's the case, he'll definitely appear by his side. Then we just have to follow Shumming and we'll find the invader. Lone Moon also reacted. Holy shit, this logic was so lame. Indeed, the cheats didn't need to use their brains. Then now I Ching turned to look at Shunning. Of course we join Tai Yin's sect first. It'll be easier for us to keep an eye on him. Lone Moon made the final decision. Let's go. Let's register. With that, he led the two of them into the courtyard where Shumming mentioned the registration for Foundation Establishment disciples. He adjusted his cultivation level to the Foundation Establishment stage. Compared to the sea of people outside, the courtyard was much quieter. There were only a few people inside. So Shumming was right. Everyone here was at the Foundation Establishment stage. Two disciples dressed in blue uniforms were at the front of the registration. They were probably from Tai Yin's sect. Both of them were chi refinement cultivators. They were very enthusiastic towards the people who came to register. They especially invited them to sit down. Then, they quickly went forward to register their names and other information. Then he tested his cultivation and spells, passed through a few simple formations, and tested his spiritual root, and so on. Lone Moon and Chef were high-level cultivators to begin with. These tests were nothing to them. As for Shunning, the two disciples didn't even see her. These tests were indeed easy for Foundation Establishment cultivators. Not just them, everyone else in the courtyard passed without any pressure. By the time they were done, the selection of chi refinement disciples had also come to an end. There were less than half of the cultivators in the courtyard. And Shumming, who was at the 7th stage of chi refinement, also failed. Lone Moon, I Ching, Shunning shit. Chapter 630. Congratulations, fellow Taoist Lone Moon. You have successfully joined the Tai Yin sect. So Shumming smiled sincerely and said with some envy, I knew that fellow Taoist would definitely be able to get what you want. What the hell? You've already been killed, so what's the point of them joining the Tai Yin sect? In any case, you're someone who has ascended before. Aren't you embarrassed to be so weak? The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched several times. He took a deep breath to suppress the curses in his heart. Fellow, Taoist Swa, what are your plans for the future? Swa Shuming scratched his head in embarrassment. To tell you the truth, I heard that Gue sect will be accepting disciples in Pinghua City in 3 days. Although Gue sect's reputation is not as good as Taiyin's sect, it's still one of the 6 famous sections. That's why I wanted to try my luck there. Why didn't you say so earlier if there was a backup plan? Oh, is Gue sect that good? Lone Moon asked. Of course. Swa Shuming's eyes brightened. Although Gue sect doesn't have as many disciples as Taiyin's sect, most of them are pill cultivators. There's even a 9th-stage pill refiner in the sect. Among the 6 famous sects, Gue sect is famous. 9th-level alchemist? Lone Moon thought for a moment. Could he have been an alchemist in the past? That's right. The more he spoke, the more excited he became. The only level 9 alchemist in the entire Rainbow Light realm is in Gue sect. The other sects have to seek help from Gue sect if they want to refine high-grade elixirs of 9th grade and above. If that's the case, Gue sect is indeed a good choice. Of course, and their requirements for disciples are different from the Taiyin sect. They don't care about spirit roots. Disciples with different spirit roots can join as long as they pass the entrance test. That good? We'll go with you then. Then when? Swa Shuming was stunned, his eyes widening in disbelief as he stared at him. It's decided. How do I get to Pinghua City? No, fellow Taoist. Haven't you already joined the Taiyin sect? It's our first time out, so we don't know the way. How about we go together? But you can, but there's no time to lose. Why don't we set off now? Oh, right, I forgot to introduce you. He pointed to the 2 people beside him and said, These 2 are my companions. This is I Ching, a sword cultivator. As for the other one, it's not important. Swa Shuming, Shunning, Motherf asterisk Kerr. Swa Shuming was a little confused. Even he did not understand why the 3 of them, who had clearly passed Taiyin sect selection and had a bright future ahead of them, would mysteriously decide to follow him to Gue sect after a short conversation. He thought back to their conversation and reflected on what he had said that had caused them to change their minds and choose Gue sect over Taiyin sect. But no matter how he explained, the few of them seemed determined to join Gue sect. By the time they reacted, they were already on the way to Pinghua City. Swa Shuming did not feel good at all. He looked at the 3 of them with guilt in his eyes and looked like he wanted to commit suicide to atone for his sins. He didn't expect that a few casual words from him would have such an effect. Fellow Taoist Swa, where do we go next? Lone Moon pointed at the intersection in front of them. Swa Shuming looked at the 3 of them, speechless. After a while, he pointed to the left and said, Pinghua City is in the west. He then tried to persuade them for the umpteenth time. Fellow Taoist Lone Moon, do you really want to follow me to Gue sect? It's not too late to join Taiyin sect now. Don't do anything stupid. Then which sect do you want to join? Of course I have to go to Gue sect. He had already been rejected here. That's settled then. Let's go. Lone Moon headed to the left. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? This is an important matter for cultivation. Do you have to be so casual? Swa Shuming looked like he was about to break down. Seeing that the 3 of them had no intention of changing their minds, he could only sigh and follow them. He could only sigh and follow them. His whole person was like a frosted eggplant. As soon as he thought about how his 3 fellow Taoists might have their bright futures ruined because of a few words from him, he was almost drowning in guilt. Yet they acted as if nothing had happened. They followed him all the way to Gue sect. No matter how he tried to persuade them, they wouldn't listen. What's more, in order to match his cultivation level, they didn't choose to use sword kinesis. Instead, they followed him to the transportation array in the neighboring city. At that moment, he felt like a huge mountain of responsibility was pressing down on his head. He gritted his teeth. Forget it. If they really became fellow sect members in the future, he would protect them even if it cost him his life. They didn't put their trust in him in vain. Thus, Swa Shuming made a vow in his heart to protect the big boss. After the 4 of them left the city, they headed west. Because Swa Shuming was still a chi refinement cultivator, He wasn't familiar with sword kinesis. That was why they had to walk. But after walking for 6 to 8 hours, they still didn't see any sign of the neighboring city. We're not there yet. Shun-ing calculated the time. It was almost dinner time. Can we rest now? I'm so tired. Tire my ass. Lone Moon stopped in his tracks. He turned back and rolled his eyes at a certain lazy person. Get off Chef's back before you say that. They hadn't walked a single step since they left the city. They were all carried by others. How could they have the cheek to say they were tired? Fellow Taoists. Swiss Shuming paused and looked at the sky. Miss Shun is right. It's getting late. There's a village in front. Why don't we rest for the night and continue our journey tomorrow? Lone Moon turned to look. Indeed, they could see a village in front of them. There was even a large field of spirit rice at the entrance of the village. Lone Moon nodded. The people in this village were probably cultivators too. It's just that they didn't have much potential. Their cultivation level wasn't high. That was why they could only grow some spirit herbs and spirit rice to survive. Villages like this were usually very friendly to cultivators like them who passed by. There were even courtyards in the village for people to rest in. Of course, they had to pay spirit stones. The few of them then walked towards the village. When they entered, they realized that the village seemed to have suffered some kind of natural disaster. There were cracks all over the ground. Half of the houses had collapsed. Most of the villagers were using sorcery to rebuild. Even a mountain at the side had collapsed. Soil rolled into the village and buried a large field of spirit rice. Was this an earthquake? Swiss Shuming was shocked. He went to ask. Indeed, there was an earthquake. Fortunately, the villagers were all cultivators. No one was injured. They directly rented a small courtyard at the entrance of the village. They planned to stay here for the night. Swiss Shuming did not enter the house. Fellow Taoists, have a good rest. I have a few old acquaintances in this village. I want to visit them. He instructed them. With that, he directly entered the village. He seemed anxious to know about his friend's situation. However, he left for 4 hours. When they finished dinner, they didn't see him return. Chapter 631. Congratulations, fellow Taoist Lone Moon. You have successfully joined the Tai Yin sect. So Shuming smiled sincerely and said with some envy, I knew that fellow Taoist would definitely be able to get what you want. What the hell? You've already been killed, so what's the point of them joining the Tai Yin sect? In any case, you're someone who has ascended before. Aren't you embarrassed to be so weak? The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched several times. He took a deep breath to suppress the curses in his heart. Fellow Taoist Swa, what are your plans for the future? Swiss Shuming scratched his head in embarrassment. To tell you the truth, I heard that Guai sect will be accepting disciples in Pinghua City in 3 days. Although Guai sect's reputation is not as good as Tai Yin sect, it's still one of the 6 famous sections. That's why I wanted to try my luck there. Why didn't you say so earlier if there was a backup plan? Oh, is Guai sect that good? Lone Moon asked. Of course. Swiss Shuming's eyes brightened. Although Guai sect doesn't have as many disciples as Tai Yin sect, most of them are pill cultivators. There's even a 9th-stage pill refiner in the sect. Among the 6 famous sects, Guai sect is famous. 9th-level alchemist? Lone Moon thought for a moment. Could he have been an alchemist in the past? That's right. The more he spoke, the more excited he became. The only level 9 alchemist in the entire Rainbow Light realm is in Guai sect. The other sects have to seek help from Guai sect if they want to refine high-grade elixirs of 9th grade and above. If that's the case, Guai sect is indeed a good choice. Of course, and their requirements for disciples are different from the Tai Yin sect. They don't care about spirit roots. Disciples with different spirit roots can join as long as they pass the entrance test. That good? We'll go with you then. Then when... Swiss Shuming was stunned, his eyes widening in disbelief as he stared at him. It's decided. How do I get to Pinghua City? No, fellow Taoist. Haven't you already joined the Tai Yin sect? It's our first time out, so we don't know the way. How about we go together? But there's no time to lose. Why don't we set off now? All right, I forgot to introduce you. He pointed to the two people beside him and said, "These two are my companions. This is I Ching, a sword cultivator. As for the other one, it's not important." Zwa Shuming, Shunning, Mother asterisk Kerr. Zwa Shuming was a little confused. Even he did not understand why the three of them, who had clearly passed Taiyin sect selection and had a bright future ahead of them, would mysteriously decide to follow him to Gue E sect after a short conversation. He thought back to their conversation and reflected on what he had said that had caused them to change their minds and choose Gue E sect over Taiyin sect. But no matter how he explained, the few of them seemed determined to join Gue E sect. By the time they reacted, they were already on the way to Pinghua City. So Shuming did not feel good at all. He looked at the three of them with guilt in his eyes and looked like he wanted to commit suicide to atone for his sins. He didn't expect that a few casual words from him would have such an effect. "Fellow Daoiswa, where do we go next?" Lone Moon pointed at the intersection in front of them. Zwa Shuming looked at the three of them, speechless. After a while, he pointed to the left and said, "Pinghua City is in the west." He then tried to persuade them for the umpteenth time. "Fellow Taoist Lone Moon, do you really want to follow me to Gue sect? It's not too late to join Taiyin sect now. Don't do anything stupid. Then which sect do you want to join?" "Of course I have to go to Gue sect. He had already been rejected here. That's settled then. Let's go." Lone Moon headed to the left. "What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? This is an important matter for cultivation. Do you have to be so casual?" So Shuming looked like he was about to break down. Seeing that the three of them had no intention of changing their minds, he could only sigh and follow them. He could only sigh and follow them. His whole person was like a frosted eggplant. As soon as he thought about how his three fellow Taoists might have their bright futures ruined because of a few words from him, he was almost drowning in guilt. Yet they acted as if nothing had happened. They followed him all the way to Gue sect. No matter how he tried to persuade them, they wouldn't listen. What's more, in order to match his cultivation level, they didn't choose to use sword kinesis. Instead, they followed him to the transportation array in the neighboring city. At that moment, he felt like a huge mountain of responsibility was pressing down on his head. He gritted his teeth. Forget it. If they really became fellow sect members in the future, he would protect them even if it cost him his life. They didn't put their trust in him in vain. Thus, Zwa Shuming made a vow in his heart to protect the big boss. After the four of them left the city, they headed west. Because Zwa Shuming was still a chi refinement cultivator, he wasn't familiar with sword kinesis. That was why they had to walk. But after walking for 6 to 8 hours, they still didn't see any sign of the neighboring city. "We're not there yet." Shun Ing calculated the time. It was almost dinner time. "Can we rest now? I'm so tired." "Tire my ass." Lone Moon stopped in his tracks. He turned back and rolled his eyes at a certain lazy person. "Get off Chef's back before you say that." They hadn't walked a single step since they left the city. They were all carried by others. How dare they say they were tired? "Fellow Taoists." Zwa Shuming paused. He looked at the sky and said, "Miss Shan is right. It's getting late." "There's a village in front. Why don't we rest for the night and continue our journey tomorrow?" Lone Moon turned to look. Indeed, they could see a village in front of them. At one glance, there was a large field of spirit rice at the entrance of the village. Lone Moon nodded. The people in this village were probably cultivators too. It's just that they didn't have good qualifications. Their cultivation level wasn't high. That was why they could only grow some spirit herbs and spirit rice to survive. Villages like this were usually very friendly to cultivators like them who passed by. There were even courtyards in the village for people to rest in. Of course, they had to pay spirit stones. The few of them then walked towards the village. When they entered, they realized that the village seemed to have suffered some kind of natural disaster. There were cracks all over the ground. Half of the houses had collapsed. Most of the villagers were using sorcery to rebuild. Even a mountain at the side had collapsed. Soil rolled into the village and buried a large field of spirit rice. Was this an earthquake? Zwa Shuming was shocked. He went in to ask. Indeed, there was an earthquake. Fortunately, the villagers were all cultivators. No one was injured. They directly rented a small courtyard at the entrance of the village. They planned to stay here for the night. Shuming did not enter the house. Fellow Taoists, rest well. I have a few old acquaintances in this village. I want to visit them. He instructed them. With that, he directly entered the village. He seemed anxious to know about his friend's situation. However, he left for 4 hours. By the time they finished dinner, they didn't see him return. Chapter 632. Gue-e sect was not far. The spirit boat flew for less than an hour. They saw a large number of green floating peaks in front of them. The spirit boat flew straight towards the highest peak in the middle and stopped on the square in front of the hall. The many new disciples on the boat were stirred. They all walked to the side to look. Even Shuming could not help but look out curiously. There were already 4 to 5 disciples standing in front of the hall. There were men and women dressed in the same green robes. Their cultivation levels were all at the foundation establishment stage. They all looked up at the slowly descending spirit boat. After the spirit boat stopped, they called for everyone to disembark. Lone Moon and the others were about to disembark when they suddenly felt a gaze directed towards them. There was a faint murderous intent. Lone Moon's heart sank. He subconsciously took a step to the side, avoiding that gaze. He turned and saw that the gaze came from the girl on the far right of the disciple below. There was still some floating spirit chi around her. It seemed like she had just reached the foundation establishment stage. But Lone Moon could see that she was actually in the late stages of foundation establishment. He just did not know what method she used to hide her cultivation. Looking closely, he realized that her gaze did not fall on them, but on Shuming in front. There was some probing and evaluation in her gaze, as if she was looking at a commodity waiting to be evaluated, but the murderous intent from before had disappeared. Father Nyo, I Ching obviously also noticed this person. He directly said in a low voice, "She is that person in the dense forest." Lone Moon was shocked. "Are you sure? This clearly looked like an ordinary cultivator." "Yes." I Ching nodded. "She saw us in the dense forest." Lone Moon reacted. "To avoid alerting the enemy, we hid." With that said, he directly pulled the 2 out of the crowd, raised his hand, and set up a concealment array around them. The 3 figures instantly disappeared from the spirit boat. Everyone was in a hurry to disembark, so no one noticed that they disappeared. "Fellow Taoist Lone Moon, let's disembark too." Where are they?" Shuming turned and was just about to call them to disembark together, but found that there was no one behind him. The 3 people who were just behind him had disappeared. He looked anxious, subconsciously looking for them. "Hey, what are you waiting for? We have arrived at the sect. Quickly disembark." The disciple controlling the spirit boat saw that he did not disembark and urged. "No, senior brother, I came with 3 friends." "There's no one left on the ship," the disciple replied. "I think they've already gone down." Shuming then got off the boat with a confused look on his face. He kept searching the crowd, but could not find anyone, and the woman below kept looking in Shuming's direction. "Chef, is this really the intruder from that day?" The invisible Lone Moon scrutinized the woman on the right. "She doesn't look any different." "I don't know either." I Ching's frown deepened. It wasn't just different. As a manager, he could even sense that the soul in the other party's body originated from the source of this world. There was nothing out of place at all, but this was indeed the intruder who had escaped that night. "Master, look." The 2 of them turned to look at Shunning. "Let's compare the data." She immediately clicked on a light screen, and a series of data flashed across it. In less than a moment, it had already stopped. Shunning tilted her head. What is it?" Lone Moon asked. "Did you find out? She is indeed from this plane, but there's something else mixed in her body." "Something else? What did she mean?" I Ching faltered. As if recalling something, he directly activated some of his source power and looked again. Instantly, his eyes widened. "Her soul. What is it? What did you see?" Lone Moon asked. I Ching glanced at him and activated a sliver of his source power to sweep it in front of his eyes. "Holy shit!" He almost cried out in shock. The source power allowed them to directly see through the physical body and see the other party's soul. He saw that in the middle of the woman's originally transparent soul body, there was suddenly a layer of black. Her entire soul body looked like expired bread that was starting to mold from the middle. It was extremely strange. Possession. Lone Moon instantly thought of this possibility. A moment later, he directly denied it. No, this isn't possession. That layer of black soul body was especially closely mixed with the original soul. Although it looked disgusting, it was a complete body. It couldn't be possession, but more like a combination. Wait a minute. Combination? Could it be that the real invader is the layer of soul in the middle? It is residing in the other party's body and has merged with the soul of this world? Instantly, he felt like he was talking about mushroom whose soul had been extracted. Shuning nodded. Holy shit, why did invaders like to do things like snatching other people's bodies? What do we do now? Chef, can you separate them? Just like when he saved Mushroom, he directly tore them apart. No, I Ching shook his head. The invader has already merged with the main soul. If we forcibly separate them, the original soul will also dissipate. Main soul, Lone Moon's eyes widened in shock. How is that possible? How can the main soul merge with someone else, unless the other party is willing? He stopped mid-sentence. Holy shit, no way. That soul was willing to be swallowed by the invader? I Ching's expression darkened. Before he could think carefully, the disciple in front of him had already led everyone into the hall. That invader walked right at the front, but at the moment he turned, his gaze still seemed to sweep in Zhuo Shuming's direction. Lone Moon and the others who had already concealed their figures and auras also followed behind him and walked in. The hall was already filled with people. Most of them were nascent soul cultivators. It seemed like they were the leaders of Gui sect. The two people with the highest cultivation were at the soul formation stage. There was a hint of elixir aura on them. They should be core cultivators. After that invader led everyone into the hall, he walked directly toward the nascent soul cultivator on the right. He called out sweetly, "Daddy," and then stood obediently behind him. There are quite a number of disciples joining Gui sect this time. The one sitting in the middle was probably the sect master of Gui sect. He glanced at the hundreds of new disciples in the hall, then smiled at everyone in the hall and said, "Elders, do you have anyone you'd like to take in as a disciple?" The nascent soul cultivators in the hall then stood up one by one and started to choose disciples. Almost everyone picked a few people. Although they were all disciples of Gui sect, to be able to be under the tutelage of a nascent soul cultivator and have a master to guide them, it was naturally much better than ordinary disciples cultivating on their own. So the people who were chosen were naturally pleasantly surprised. After bowing, they stood behind the nascent soul cultivators. In less than an hour, the number of disciples in the hall was reduced by a quarter. Lone Moon looked carefully and realized that the invader's gaze had been fixed on Zhuo Shuming from the start. His gaze was full of probing. It seemed like their previous guess was right. This invader's motive was related to Zhuo Shuming. But for some reason, the other party did not make a move. It was as if he was waiting for something. Zhuo Shuming, however, did not notice anything. He took the time to look at the people around him from time to time, looking anxious to find someone. Until everyone had chosen, that invader did not make a sound. "Elders, since you have already chosen, let's end here for today." The Gui sect master in the middle stood up and looked at the remaining disciples. "The remaining people are the outer sect disciples of our sect. You may leave." The sect master was about to wave his hand when the soul formation cultivator on the left suddenly spoke. "Wait, you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.